Week 4 of this VGC 2015 Prismatic Draft League season, and I actually kind of forgot for a while that once this week is in the books, that'll be the halfway point in the regular season. It really feels like Season 10 is flying by with incredible speed, but I'm having a lot of fun going back to Generation 6, and once again it's time to see what kinds of incredible techs people have come up with this week. I know Skydrop is continuing to be a popular choice with some teams, but we'll see what they did with it soon. First, of course, we have the standings to look at. These are the standings in Pool A going into Week 4, so exactly the same standings that I showed on Monday, and you can see how the match went between the Halifax Masquerade Men and the Yosemite Jolteons in that previous video. But across the rest of Pool A going into Week 4, we have two undefeated teams remaining, the Sinister Hand and the East Coast Espurr. The Sinister Hand still not having lost a single game. And then actually, both pools, I'll go to Pool B in a moment, but both of them are kind of majority losing records, as a few teams are sort of hoarding a lot of the success so far. But that means there are going to be a lot of opportunities for anyone else to make a serious run at the playoffs. We do now know that more than half of the teams across the league will make the playoffs. As I said in Monday's video, staff have clarified how the playoffs will work, and it will be the top 8 teams in Pool A and the top 6 in Pool B in a seeded 1 to 14 bracket, so the pools will mix as soon as the playoffs start. I actually thought about combining these tables into one going forward now that I know how the playoffs work, but then I realized that actually will be misleading because it's still the pool standings that decide who makes the playoffs, and once that final bracket is set, I can just show it then. But anyway, in Pool A, we have a few teams, 2 teams in particular, still not having taken a single loss, a few others almost keeping up with them. But then, I mean, at least a couple of these teams at 1 and 2 or lower right now will have to make the playoffs, so there's still a lot of room for anyone to make a comeback. And like I said, it's a similar story in Pool B, again with only 2 undefeated teams, the Ontario Oguris and Genie Incarnate, and I believe they played each other in Week 4, so about to be only 1 undefeated. And again, a majority of teams in the pool actually under 500 right now, so a lot of room for anyone to make a playoff run from here. Before we get into the games, there are a handful of trades. The first one I already showed on Monday. The Halifax Masquerade Men dropped Steelix and picked up Pangoro. As I said in Monday's video, I really wanted Taunt on my team. I felt like it was something I was glaringly missing in the early weeks of the season, and I didn't really mean to be missing it. I knew in the draft that I wanted Taunt. I just thought of it as a very widely distributed move. I'm still not sure what happened. I haven't bothered to check. Maybe it's just not as widely distributed in Gen 6 as it is in newer gens. But I didn't deliberately get a Taunt user in the draft because I figured I would just end up with some of them anyway, and then I seem to have not. So that was one reason I wanted Pangoro. The other reason is it can pivot with Parting Shot, and that also seemed useful to my Trick Room team. So it had a combination of support options. There are some others that I'm not saying, but those are genuinely the most important ones that nothing else within my budget had available for me. And at the cost of Steelix, a Pokemon that wasn't doing a whole lot, probably ever, that seemed pretty worthwhile to me. I am thinking about making another trade or two, but I haven't decided yet, so this is the only one so far for me. But we have a couple more from other teams. First, the Edmonton Exeggcute made a big move, dropping Therian Thundurus, Barbaracle, and Sentret for Electivire, Golurk, and Meowstic. So this is a bit of a redistribution of points. Electivire is a strong electric type that costs a lot less than Thundurus, but then in return they get a much more expensive support Pokemon in Meowstic compared to Sentret. And of course Meowstic does different things from Sentret. It's a prankster support. It can get priority weather, priority screens, probably assuming it gets those in this generation. I don't know if it gets fake out in Gen 6, but I think it probably does. So a lot of options that Sentret doesn't have, but no longer has that follow me. And I know Electivire is right there. I don't think Electivire gets follow me in Gen 6, so I don't think they have replaced that redirection. I think they just, like I said, decided that they could trade off Thundurus for a cheaper electric type to use those points in a support option that does a lot of things that Sentret can't instead. That's my assumption anyway. I believe Golurk also was 1 point more than Barbaracle, And I didn't really ever know what Barbarical was doing for their team in the first place, but knowing this coach, I think Golurk is probably doing no-guard shenanigans. So that makes a lot of sense to me. And actually, I think Meowstic gets skill swap, right? So priority skill swap with no-guard Golurk. There's definitely some cheese going to be coming from that. While, again, I think the drop from Thundurus to Electivire just makes the math work. And finally, we have the Westwego Whiscash dropping Luxray and Togepi for Hippopotas and Moltres. So a couple of Follow Me Pokemon becoming available in Pool A this week, but of course, 2 of the weaker ones. We'll see whether anyone is interested, but so much for the cooler London Vespiquens plan to hoard all of them. Unless they're making some trades soon, but haven't seen those yet. In any case, Hippopotas is kind of interesting on this team because it can run an Eviolite, and it's probably pretty bulky then, at least on the physical side. And this team's strongest attackers are Landorus, Terrakion, and Metagross, that physical attacking trio that I've been talking about for a while, all of which are immune to Sand Chip. So it's not like a conventional Sand team. Also, Terrakion, of course, gets a special defense boost for being a rock type. It's not like a conventional Sand team, but Hippopotas gives them a way to disrupt opposing weather, and their strongest Pokemon mostly are unfazed by the sand. So, in effect, they kind of benefit from it because it chips most opponents and it doesn't chip them. And then Moltres gives them... Again, I keep talking up the physical offense trio with this team. They don't have as strong a special attacker anywhere unless they want to use Ludicolo to boost their own Storm Drain Gastrodon, which is an option. But Moltres gives them a strong special attacker that they don't really have, except maybe from Ludicolo up to this point, and it gives them, of course, that type synergy with the 2 water types and Ludicolo being a grass type as well. So I don't know specific game plans that they have for it. It's also an Earthquake immunity that they can put next to Landorus and even Hippopotas itself. So they now have a second Earthquake immunity besides... Well, Landorus is their existing Earthquake immunity. If it's clicking the Earthquake itself, that's not really valuable. You could run like Magnet Rise on Metagross, but Moltres gives them something naturally immune to Earthquake that they can put next to Landorus, and it complements the physical core by being a strong special attacker. So Moltres makes a lot of sense to me at face value. Hippopotas, I think, could be interesting in some matchups, at least to disrupt weather. And as for the Pokemon they traded away, I don't know. Togepi, it gets Follow Me, but it's not very strong otherwise. Luxray is a pretty good support Pokemon, but I guess they decided it wasn't really what they needed. I don't know what went into that decision, but we'll see how it plays out for them over the coming weeks. Those, I believe, are all the trades for Week 4, so with that, time to go to the battles. And this week, we get to see the fruits of one of those trades immediately as the Edmonton Exeggcute take on the East Coast Espurr. The Espurr, again, one of 2 undefeated teams so far in Pool A, so can they keep the winning streak going, or will the new duo of Meowstic and Golurk disrupt their plans? On the Espurr side, this is another one where I'm just starting recording kind of late, so I'm going to try to limit the time I spend at Team Preview, when usually I don't know what's going on anyway, and I just have to jump into the battles. But the Espurr have brought only 1 Mega this time in the Salamence. We see the Swampert that put in a lot of work last week. Swampert makes sense because it matches up well into the opponent's Mega Blaziken. I mean, they're literally 2 parts of a starter rock, paper, scissors trio. And Swampert is pretty free to spam Earthquake in this matchup because they have 3 different ground immunities that they can put next to it. And there's no ground resist on the Exeggcute side, except that they brought 1 immunity in Vivillon. But that can't even redirect an Earthquake because of the spread damage. So they could be trying to position Swampert to do something. I could see Taunt or Thunder Wave from the Thundurus to shut down a weird Smeargle game plan or Meowstic game plan, or paralyze something like Blaziken or Weavile so that Swampert is free to attack. Remember, Dark type's not immune to Prankster in Generation 6, so Thunder Wave into Weavile is an option. But they also have the Mega Salamence, which... I mean, there's no flying resist on the other side, so maybe I'm overthinking it, or maybe I'm just recency biased because the Swampert put in a lot of work last week, but the Salamence also is positioned to go crazy with Thundurus support here. And then Charizard, Ferrothorn, Florges, I don't know, those are all strong Pokemon. We'll see what they're cooking with them. On the Exeggcute side, you never know what that Smeargle is going to go for, but Mega Blaziken we've seen try to sweep throughout the season. Weavile also can try to do... Weavile's one of their best threats into Mega Salamence, so that's something. And then, yeah, new Pokemon, Meowstic and Golurk joining the team. Let's see what they've got. There's a lot of text in the chat. What happened here? Guess thou Smeargle shenanigan. I'm gonna speak like an old riddle, like a riddle teller from an old story. Let's see if they're really wrong here, because I think that Ghost is probably, I think that guess from Ghost is probably about right. Anyway. Alright, we got Golurk and Smeargle, so no Meowstic leading with the Golurk. Instead, Smeargle is here next to Golurk, but I think that guess is probably correct. It's my guess, too, that Smeargle is going to copy or steal the ability somehow. Smeargle could be running Skill Swap or Roleplay itself, and then it probably has, like, Sheer Cold or something. But we'll see how that holds up against Thundurus and Salamence. I can see Thundurus taunting the Smeargle, and Salamence just going for damage. So it's not necessarily going to be easy to pull off if that is the Execcute's game plan. Salamence Mega Evolving immediately. Actually going for Dragon Dance. I was thinking there might be like a Hyper Voice coming out here, but no. Dragon Dance looks like Physical Ments. No Sky Drops so far. Well, but Thundurus hasn't moved yet, which means it's probably not using a status move, so it could be Sky Drop here. But Smeargle going for Roleplay this turn. It does copy the No Guard. So I guess technically the guess was wrong because it was Roleplay instead of Skill Swap, but Thundurus just going for a Thunderbolt. Does some damage to Smeargle, but doesn't quite KO. And Golurk actually goes for Curse. And being a Ghost type, it has the effect of getting rid of a bunch of its own HP to put a Curse on something. So Salamence now is cursed. Golurk using a Citrus Berry to get some of its HP back. Salamence maybe not making the best use of that setup turn, as it could be forced out here, but instead we see Thundurus switching out for Swampert. Salamence is staying in. Golurk switching out. King's Shield from the Smeargle. Is Salamence going to attack into it? It's Rock Slide, so that would KO Smeargle, but it's of course stopped by the King's Shield. But not a contact move, so Salamence will not take the attack drop, and it does just one-shot Vivillon, as we don't see a Focus Sash on the Vivillon. Good chance it's on Smeargle. But that Pokemon's gone. Salamence takes some more damage from the Curse, though, and now Weavile's here. Could threaten Salamence with Ice Shard. Instead, we see a Fake Out. Oh, I didn't think about this. Espurr coach pointing out in the chat, while saying thank you for giving yourself no guard, but the implication is when a Pokemon has no guard, not only can its own attacks not miss, but attacks targeted into it also can't miss. So the Smeargle actually took away any chance that this Rock Slide would miss. It does get knocked out here. You would think Weavile... I mean, I don't know the calc. Weavile Ice Shard into Mega Salamence. I don't know the bulk of Mega Salamence or anything, but I would think it's a threat to KO. Instead, Smeargle taken out by the Rock Slide. Salamence chipped down by the Curse. Only has one more turn of that in it. Weavile took a lot from the Rock Slide, though. And now Golurk is back. Salamence will switch out to get rid of the Curse here. Knock off into Swampert takes away Choice Scarf. Interesting. Okay, Scarf Swampert spamming Earthquake with 3 flying types on the team seems pretty plausible, but we're not going to see exactly that in this game. And actually, we see Swampert going for a Rock Slide. It knocks out the Weavile. Doesn't do a whole lot to the Golurk. But Golurk is alone now. Ice Punch doing only about half to Thundurus. We see Swagger from Thundurus into the Swampert. So that is going to raise its attack stat and confuse it. And we know because it had a Choice Scarf that it doesn't have a berry to cure the confusion. But, and we'll just see if Swampert breaks through here. This turn it doesn't. And so Golurk will get a chance to knock out Thundurus with a crit that honestly might have mattered, because that first roll was actually a little bit less than half. Maybe it would have been a roll to KO without the crit, I don't know, but the crit takes care of that for them. But now Charizard is the last Pokemon for the Espurr, and we see a Pledge combo. Charizard Fire Pledge into Swampert Water Pledge. That then is a Water type combined attack, and he uses Swampert's special attack stat, but that is plenty to take out this Golurk with the super effective Water type damage. The Exeggcute, of course, have shown the power of the Rainbow Pledge combo of Fire and Water before, using it to spam a bunch of Rock Slide flinches, and it looks like the Espurr brought basically the same idea, actually, and that's probably what the Choice Scarf Swampert is for, then. But... And we saw the Salamence use Rock Slide as well, right? Yeah, we did. But, of course, they brought things out in the other order this game. They never set the Rainbow up. They used the Rock Slides early, and then the Pledge combo itself got the last KO in Game 1. Let's see if they play it more straightforwardly in Game 2, or if they bring something else, and let's see if the Exeggcute can make their Smeargle game plan work this time. Very chatty game. Alright. Smeargle Golurk lead once again, probably going for the roleplay. We see Florges and Ferrothorn on the other side. No guard on the Smeargle. It's hidden power fire? Or fighting, probably. It's side hidden power into Ferrothorn to activate a weakness policy. So it has to be fire or fighting, and I would think it's probably fighting because that of the two options that does less damage to your own Ferrothorn. But side activating a weakness policy is not something I've seen too many times outside of Dynamax formats, but let's see what the Ferrothorn can do with this. And the Florges also showing leftovers with Symbiosis, so it consumes the weakness policy, and then Ferrothorn gets leftovers recovery from the Florges sharing that item. However, I said that we'll see what Ferrothorn can do with this, and it turns out what it can do is just get knocked out immediately by Fire Punch. A little bit unfortunate there for the Ferrothorn. We see Salamence come in now. It intimidates Golurk. We've seen the Ice Punch already. Salamence will Mega Evolve, just go for Rock Slide. Crits the Smeargle. Resisted by the Golurk. Smeargle does land that perfect accuracy Sheer Cold, though, before dropping to a Florges Moonblast. So Smeargle successfully getting a KO with no guard and a one-hit KO attack. Now we see Florges got tickled a little bit by a Stone Edge, and now we see the Choice Scarf Swampert come back in and the Weavile on the other side. It's Fake Out into Swampert. No Protect, of course, because Choice Scarf. We see Hidden Power fighting from Florges. Just missed the KO on the Weavile. Am I sure it's fighting? I think it must be fighting, because you would not want to do Fire-type damage into your own Ferrothorn. But I'm a little surprised that missed the KO. Anyway, we see another Curse from the Golurk. That's a super fun tech this week. Swampert is the victim of the Curse this time. Florges survives a Poison Jab from Weavile, and it's a Life Orb Weavile, which I could have realized earlier, but I'm only realizing now. So it drops to its Life Orb chip. Scarf Swampert locks into Waterfall to take out the Golurk. We see Calm Mind on the Florges. A little bit of Curse damage, and now Blaziken is here, standing alone, trying to keep this match going for the Exeggcute. It Mega Evolves, it protects, makes sense. Swampert will take some more Curse damage, and Blaziken needs a speed boost anyway because they know the Swampert has the Scarf. It avoids a Waterfall and a Moonblast, and actually it shows Rock Slide, so that gets 2 KOs here. And those are the last 2 Pokemon that the Espurr have. I didn't realize the other 2 went down so quickly. Ferrothorn, of course, getting wiped out by the Fire Punch, and what happened to the Salamence? Oh right, Sheer Cold, of course. That was their whole thing. Well, the Smeargle got that KO so quickly that I forgot the Espurr only had 2 Pokemon left, but Blaziken taking advantage of the Curse damage and getting those last 2 KOs with Rock Slide, even though the Swampert resisted, and then also using its speed boost to outspeed the Scarf Swampert. So Blaziken winning against Swampert in this battle of the Hoenn starters, but this was only game 2. There is still a game 3, and I still wonder whether the Espurr will try the more straightforward Pledge combo this time and give the Exeggcute a taste of their own medicine, but we'll see. We've got Meowstic and Golurk this time against Thundurus and Salamence, okay. Salamence Mega Evolving immediately once again. It's Thunder Wave into Meowstic, but with the Prankster it still gets priority on its Reflect. We see a Dragon Dance from the Salamence, and it gets Cursed once again. I really like the Cursed Golurk this week. It especially with the way the Curse was able to wear down the Swampert in Game 2, it really put in some work there. And it's a fun tech. Maybe I should be thinking about Curse Trevenant or something. I think it gets that move. Not 100% sure. Anyway, the Citrus Berry and the Reflect not too helpful to Golurk there as it gets wiped out by a +1 Double Edge. Flying type, of course, thanks to the Aerolate ability. But Meowstic has both screens up now, and Salamence takes some more Curse damage. Oh, and then it took a recoil first and then more Curse damage, so it's already on its last legs here. Blaziken can come in, Mega Evolve, and Protect, probably. Salamence will switch out to get rid of the Curse. We see Swampert come in. It is protecting the Blaziken. Of course, Blaziken is vulnerable to a Thunder Wave. But we see Electro Web from Thundurus. It avoids, obviously Blaziken avoids it this time. Doesn't do much to Meowstic. Meowstic throwing off an Energy Ball into Swampert. Doesn't quite get the KO. But now Swampert's very low again, but it is now Thunder Wave into Blaziken, so that's going to offset the speed boost. Blaziken's still moving next, though. Rock Sliding, missing the Thundurus, and not getting the KO on Swampert. That Curse damage really mattered in Game 2, but they had another out as Blaziken does manage to flinch the Swampert here. The Energy Ball goes into Thundurus. The Exeggcute may be anticipating that the Swampert would be knocked out by the Rock Slide. But of course, Swampert's not able to protect. Maybe they thought Swampert would switch out, although, what to? Yeah, I think more likely they thought the Rock Slide would knock out the Swampert, but of course Swampert being unable to protect, there wasn't really any cost, I think, to doubling into that slot. Instead, the Thundurus gets chipped a tiny bit, and Swampert will now get to throw off an Earthquake. It crits the Blaziken and one-shots it through the screens. Meowstic's still here, but it's getting worn down. It will knock out Swampert with an Energy Ball. So the Exeggcute, not out of this yet, but it is now Weavile and Charizard revealed, which is not great for the Exeggcute, as they do have that Fire weakness switching in. And Weavile, again, can be paralyzed by Prankster Thunder Wave in this generation, and that does happen. Charizard paralyzed back as the Meowstic shows Thunder Wave, I think, for the first time in this set. So Weavile will still be faster, but it's fully paralyzed this turn. Charizard lands a Fire Pledge to knock out Meowstic. Weavile is all alone now and paralyzed, and it does have an advantage over some of these Pokemon, sort of inherently with its type matchups, but I don't think it's going to be able to get all 3 KOs here. We see Swagger into the Weavile, so that'll boost its attack stat, but honestly, it was a threat to take some KOs here anyway, so it's probably worth it to try to get the chance of Confusion self-damage, especially when you stack that with the chance of a full para. Weavile will be extremely dangerous here if it gets to attack, but it already was anyway, and the chances that it will get to attack have been pretty drastically reduced. It does, though, land an Icicle Crash that knocks out Thundurus. Takes a bit of Life Orb chip. Charizard's fully paralyzed. This one's not over yet. Hang on. Unless Salamence just knocks out Weavile here. But Weavile's behind screens. I bet it takes a Rock Slide. We've seen Fake Out, Icicle Crash, Poison Jab. Good chance they don't have Ice Shard. But also there's no guard this time. A Rock Slide could miss. I don't think Double Edge one-shots either. So the Exeggcute could still win this with some luck. That's sort of the nature of all this paralysis going around, but Salamence will just protect here. Weavile hurts itself in Confusion. Charizard lands an Air Slash. Weavile barely holds on, but that is game. Weavile now cannot win this because its own Life Orb will knock it out as soon as it attacks anything. And Salamence will knock it out first with a Double Edge. So, where there's paralysis, there's a way, and there was, I think, a way there. I guess well, okay, actually the Reflect faded as well. That's what Salamence was waiting for with the Protect. Okay, maybe the Salamence would just take out Weavile and there wasn't a way. Unless it had Ice Shard, but I don't think it did because it would have shown it by now. And it just doesn't seem likely on that set. Alright, maybe once the Salamence came back in, there was no way that the Exeggcute could win this, but they made it look close for a while there, and the Smeargle did land a Sheer Cold, which I think is the #1 thing that they wanted. Fun start here. The Espurr brought a Rainbow Pledge Rock Slide spamming team and then never actually set that up. In game 1 they did do those things, but in the other order. But some fun techs all around. Like I said, good way to start off here. Now we go to the Sinister hand, undefeated in games up to this point, taking on the Denver Dewotts. And this looks like an interesting matchup. The Dewotts have their Sand Core that on paper can do a lot of work into the Sinister Hand team. Yeah, it looks like a tricky matchup for the Sinister Hand, but not impossible by any means, because they have double Intimidate with Mawile and Scrafty. The Scrafty also, as a fighting type, can offensively threaten half of the other side's Pokemon, but then not the other half, so positioning is going to be very important here. And of course, the Suicune can threaten Tyranitar and Excadrill and just play a tanky game, being hard to remove, as we've seen in past weeks. That said, Suicune aside, and if it has a way to handle the Intimidates, position around them or something, Excadrill is definitely a giant offensive threat in this matchup, with Tyranitar giving it that speed boost and backing it up offensively. I can see Heatran being really difficult for the Sinister Hand to deal with, basically for anything on their team except Scrafty and Suicune. And then even Pokemon like Scrafty can't get comfortable here because the other half of the team is strong into the fighting type, right? With the Gardevoir, Noivern, and Amoonguss. Granted, those are not as well positioned as some of the other threats like the Mega Mawile, but I mean, both teams have a lot of ways to threaten each other. There's also possible Trick Room, of course, from the Sinister Hand side with the Dusclops, and that could, if I'm them, I'm worried about Sandrush Excadrill here, but a possible Trick Room mode could flip that situation on its head. But then Amoonguss is very disruptive into Trick Room, so both teams have done very well here, I think, at stacking up a ton of threats into each other, and it's going to come down to how they play now. Okay. All right. Some friendly interaction in the chat. We got Dusclops and Scrafty leading against Noivern and Gardevoir. And thanks to the Noivern Frisk, we see that it's Mental Herb Dusclops and Expert Belt Scrafty, looking for some extra damage on those super effective fighting type attacks into this bottom row here. And maybe also like Poison Jab into Gardevoir or Ice Punch into Amoonguss or Noivern. Who knows, right? But I guess they have multiple kinds of damage that they want to boost with that Expert Belt. It's an item you don't see very often. It's a lower boost, I think, than a Life Orb, but without the trade-off. But it only works on super effective attacks. So they must have more than one specific thing that they're looking to boost with that. We also see Frisk back the other way. It's Specs, Noivern, and of course it's Mega Gardevoir. I should have remembered that because I actually played the other Gardevoir in this pool this week. But yeah, Specs, Noivern, interesting. Let's see what they go for here. Gardevoir Mega evolves immediately but gets faked out by the Scrafty. And Noivern not taking advantage of those specs, just an immediate switcheroo into Dusclops, giving the specs to a support Pokemon that's really not going to enjoy the move restriction and taking away the Mental Herb. Dusclops, though, setting Trick Room, does now have to switch out, or else the only thing it can do is try to reverse its own Trick Room. But the Trick Room is up. Suicune switching in here. Probably going to be a hard Pokemon to remove, although Mega Gardevoir Hyper Voice would do a ton of damage to everything. Although, let's see how Mega Gardevoir takes this Expert Belt boosted Iron Head. Not very well. That's gone. Heatran switched in. Amoonguss is here. Amoonguss is a problem for the Sinister Hand under Trick Room. Let's see what they have for it. Suicune will just protect for now. It's Espurr to Scrafty. We know that the Scrafty doesn't have safety goggles or anything like that. Do safety goggles exist? Yeah, safety goggles definitely exist in Gen 6. I don't think I've run them yet this season, but I've thought about it. But we see the Dusclops switch back in. It does still have the choice specs, so it's very limited in its options, but it will at least reveal the other items here. We see Shuka Berry on the Heatran, so that can take a ground-type attack one time very well. I can't think of what ground-type attacks the Sinister Hand are likely to have, even though I've already played this team. I don't see much that they've brought here, unless it's just like a stray hidden power ground, because there are a lot of ground weaknesses on the other side. Something like that is plausible, for sure. And I guess they have, what, the Tyranitar Stoutland that they didn't bring? There could be some kind of ground coverage there. Anyway, it's Rocky Helmet on the Amoonguss. Spore goes into Suicune. Suicune will take a nap. No safety goggles on that. It'll dodge a Heat Wave, which doesn't do much to Dusclops. But the Trick Room is getting stalled out pretty effectively here. The Sinister Hand having a lot of trouble dealing with that Amoonguss. Noivern switches back in here. We see Mystic Water on the Suicune. We already know about the Choice Specs Dusclops. Noivern gets taunted, but he uses the Mental Herb that it stole to get rid of the taunt immediately. Dusclops, of course, now Choice Locked into taunt, though, so it can go for it again. In fact, it can only do that or switch. Heat Wave doing some more damage. It burns the Dusclops. Dusclops probably not going to be around much longer, and unable to click Trick Room here because it's Choice Locked. As Suicune takes a Draco Meteor pretty well, Noivern having gotten rid of its own specs, wakes up, throws back an Ice Beam, knocks Noivern out with a crit. Dusclops taken out by Heat Wave, but Suicune's still standing. But now Amoonguss is back, but so is Chandelure. So Amoonguss, with the Trick Room actually gone now, that would seem to favor the Sinister Hand, because Amoonguss is stuck on the field now. There are only 2 Pokemon left on the Dewotts side. Both of these two are faster than the Amoonguss. I'm not sure how the Heatran interacts with their speed stats. We had a lot of kind of mid-speed Pokemon here, and then Amoonguss just being very slow. But of course, Chandelure massively threatening into Amoonguss. Ideally, I think, well, I was going to say ideally it's probably not clicking Heat Wave for the Sinister Hand, because you don't want to boost the Heatran's Fire-type damage, but that might not make much difference. Actually, I don't know how big a boost Flash Fire is. Maybe that would enable it to knock Suicune out. But then if Heatran is throwing Heat Waves back, or so, Chandelure could also have Flash Fire. So, I don't know. I haven't seen any of Chandelure's moves yet anyway. But yeah, Chandelure threatening the Amoonguss, making it hard for Amoonguss to just put Suicune to sleep. And then Suicune with the Mystic Water, ready to threaten the Heatran with whatever type of water type damage it has. So this looks probably favorable for the Sinister Hand, but let's see how they play it out. Amoonguss protecting this turn, avoiding an Ice Beam. The Sinister Hand trying to prioritize that slot. We see Shadow Ball from Chandelure into Amoonguss, so maybe they do only have Heat Wave for a Fire Stab and don't want to give Heatran the Flash Fire boost. But Earth Power to Chandelure doesn't quite get the KO. The special defense drop is not going to matter here because Chandelure is already so low. Chandelure protecting, Amoonguss taking an Ice Beam really well. Suicune Not quite knocked out by an Earth Power, surviving on approximately 1 HP. But the Spore goes into Chandelure, so stopped by the Protect. Amoonguss protecting here. Do they double the Heatran? Scald into Heatran for a lot of damage. It's Hidden Power, Ground into Heatran, hitting the Shukaberry, but Scald did enough that the Hidden Power was able to knock it out anyway. Chandelure chipped down by its Life Orb, surviving on approximately 1 HP. And it's just a question, I guess, of what they can do to this Amoonguss. Can they knock it out here? Ice Beam, we saw it didn't do a whole lot earlier. The damage looks a little better now. And Life Orb Shadow Ball is enough to get the KO. Chandelure knocked out. Extremely close game 1, and this was only game 1. Suicune, I talked about its value as a tanky Pokemon that was hard to remove and an offensive threat with its Water Stab, and sure enough, the Dewotts just not quite able to remove it. But with the Suicune having Mystic Water and not something like Leftovers or a Citrus Berry, if they'd even brought Tyranitar to this game, the Sand Chip could have made all the difference here. So I wonder whether we'll see a Sand mode come out in Game 2. It is kind of threatened by the Scrafty lead, so there's a lot to think about if you're the Dewotts, and I'm not going to try to think all that through here, but Game 1 was about as close as can possibly be, and that just has me looking forward to Game 2 all the more. We see Scrafty and Chandelure against, it is the Sand mode, Excadrill and Tyranitar. They will get intimidated immediately, of course, but Chandelure threatened getting out of there. We see Mawile come in, so they have brought the double Intimidate to this one, maybe anticipating that the Sand mode would show up. Tyranitar switches out to Gardevoir as Excadrill gets faked out, so we don't get to see what it went for here. Sinister Hand looking like they're keeping up some pressure pretty effectively here. We see they brought Clefable to this game, so no Suicune in Game 2. Clefable can have Magic Guard and be immune to the sand damage with that. We'll find out, but... And Suicune, again, would be chipped down. It could make a real difference, but I do wonder... Suicune being able to sit on the field for a while and throw off attacks made a huge difference in Game 1, but clearly it's a different game plan here. The Mawile and the Gardevoir both have Mega Evolved. Notably, this means Mawile doesn't have Intimidate anymore, but it can hit hard now. We got a Fairy and a Steel on both sides of the field, although I guess there's two Fairies on the Sinister Hand side. Excadrill, in a fairly quiet turn here, as Mawile goes for the Sucker Punch into Gardevoir, but just goes into a Protect. Excadrill gets a very free Sword Stance to get rid of those two Intimidates, so immediately reestablishing itself as a giant threat. We see Follow Me from the Clefable. Excadrill just going for another Sword Stance, now from -2 attack to +2 in 2 turns. Clefable takes a bunch from a Gardevoir's Psychic. Gardevoir gets knocked out in return by Mawile Ironhead, but this Excadrill looks like a menace now. We see the Heatran switching in. We see the Scrafty switching in, so Excadrill will get intimidated again, but it's still at +1 attack. Heatran protecting. Is it Earthquake from the Excadrill? Mawile protects as well. It is Earthquake. It does a fair bit to Scrafty. The Fake Out here, the Excadrill. So if I'm the Sinister Hand here, I completely understand not clicking Fake Out into Excadrill, because I think it's probably going to protect, right? If it has that move. But the Excadrill making a bold play here, not protecting if it has that move. And the Fake Out, perhaps because this coach thought the Excadrill would protect, which makes sense to me. It's a very natural assumption here. The Fake Out goes into Heatran instead. And Excadrill has a free Brick Break. I'm sorry, I clicked the first turn. Excadrill... There we go. Excadrill is a free Brick Break to knock out the Scrafty. So that Brick Break is interesting, right? Because against Clefable, Mega Tyranitar, which they didn't bring, but we know they have, with multiple partners weak to ground, I would think the Excadrill probably has Ironhead. So the Brick Break to me strongly suggests that it doesn't have Protect, and that's perhaps why it didn't click that this turn. So Fake Out into Excadrill. I mean, the Heatran is still a giant threat as well, right? I mean, I didn't even think about what does Fake Out into Heatran do, but like preserve Mawile from getting cooked immediately. I don't know, it's a tough position. But I think I'm taking that as information for the rest of the set. I think the Excadrill probably doesn't have Protect. I'll be surprised if it turns out that it does. Actually, okay, yeah, but we see now the reason for the Fake Out into Heatran. Mawile gets to survive this turn. I guess Mawile is just in danger either way, but it gets a chance to set Rain Dance, so that gets rid of the sand. That gets rid of Excadrill's Sand Stream boost. It also will weaken Fire-type damage from Heatran, which is good because there's not really an obvious offensive threat into Heatran right now, especially since we've seen all of Mawile's moves, and Sucker Punch is the best thing it has to hit Heatran. So nerfing that damage is probably going to be pretty valuable to them. Although you think, again, Suicune would be helpful to take advantage of the Rain Dance, and they have not brought Suicune to this game. Excadrill will protect here, so all that speculation I did is immediately thrown out the window. It doesn't have Iron Head. It does have Protect. That's, I could watch these replays in advance, but proof to you that I don't. Alright, Excadrill does show Protect. Avoiding a Sucker Punch as Heatran takes out Clefable with a Flash Cannon. Now only 2 Pokemon are left for the Sinister Hand, and one of them is Chandelure. Chandelure just protecting here. Excadrill looks extremely well set up. It takes a Sucker Punch. It's back with a +1 Earthquake. Heatran having to protect around his partner's Earthquake is a little awkward, but it's very clearly worth it for them here. And we know it's not Sash Chandelure. We saw the Life Orb in Game 1. We see Hidden Power grounded to Heatran here. It does a lot through the Shuka Berry, but Heatran does survive. But at this point, Chandelure is the last Pokemon. You can just sack it to your own Earthquake. It's fine. But they take the opportunity to chip Chandelure with an Earth Power first, and now Heatran is free to protect. Excadrill, it could just knock out its partner there. There's not much downside to it, but playing it a little bit safer, Heatran gets to protect here and survive to the end of the game as Excadrill delivers the winning Earthquake. And as I said at preview in Game 1, the Excadrill did look like a giant threat. Certainly showed it here in Game 2, even without the Iron Head and even with Heatran kind of awkwardly positioned next to it, clicking Protect often. So I feel like the Sinister Hand probably should want to get the Suicune back into the game in Game 3, but maybe they have something different up their sleeve. Who knows? Let's find out. We see... Oh, and that is their first game loss of the season. Good job, chat, pointing that out. I was just going to completely let that get by me. We see Scrafty and Dusclops leading against Noivern and Gardevoir. We know these items already. All of them. Intimidate not so valuable. Into the special attackers, Gardevoir will Mega Evolve immediately. Noivern keeping its choice specs this time, just immediately throwing off a boosted Air Slash into Scrafty. However, missing the KO. But then it's Hyper Voice from Gardevoir. That'll get the KO. Dusclops does get to set Trick Room, and it's not choice locked this time, so it can use other moves as well, and it is not forced to switch out immediately. Suicune is here. It can threaten Noivern with an Ice Beam. I'm not sure how much Mystic Water Scald does Gardevoir. Does Dusclops get Rain Dance? We saw Rain Dance on the Mawile. I think Dusclops gets Sunny Day. I wonder if it gets Rain Dance. That could boost Scald damage. Noivern switches out to Heatran here. We actually see Disable shutting down the Gardevoir's Hyper Voice. That makes a lot of sense as well. Ice Beam into Heatran does basically nothing. Could have gotten a freeze, but it doesn't. Gardevoir shows that it's able to reverse the Trick Room as to start the next turn, Noivern switches back in. So, yeah, Gardevoir reversing the Trick Room, giving the speed advantage back to its own team, but at some point these teams also have to do damage. We'll see what their plan for that is with the Hyper Voice disabled. I mean, Psychic still hits things hard. Sure enough, Psychic into Dusclops. Dusclops, without an Eviolite, surviving at approximately 1 HP. But Suicune, once again, attacking what's in front of it, going for the Scald into the Noivern slot, but this goes into the Heatran slot, but this goes into Noivern. Doesn't do much damage, does get the burn. Noivern doesn't care about the physical damage nerf, but the chip damage could add up over time. We'll see. More importantly, perhaps, Dusclops very, very, very narrowly surviving that Psychic without any Eviolite, able to set the Trick Room back up. But where's the threat to keep the Gardevoir from reversing it again? Let's see. Well, they could taunt it, I guess. I think we saw taunt on the Dusclops already. But now Amoonguss comes in, of course, able to disrupt the Trick Room. So the Dewotts, after they reversed it earlier this game, they might actually want to just keep it up now, but we'll see. Amoonguss also potentially switching in on an Ice Beam. Gardevoir will just protect here, as the taunt does go into that slot. And so now Amoonguss, I guess, is positioned to spore the Dusclops. Actually, Amoonguss has higher base speed than Dusclops. You don't often hear that Amoonguss has higher base speed than anything. But Dusclops might still have a chance here to taunt Gardevoir if the Dewotts don't switch it out or something. Anyway, it's Scald, maybe trying to read another Heatran switch in. Amoonguss takes that no problem. Dewotts getting all the calls right here. But I guess this is the tricky thing for the Sinister Hand. If you taunt the Gardevoir, then the Amoonguss is free to start clicking Spore. So they prioritize the taunt into Amoonguss. Scald into Gardevoir, not a whole lot of damage. It's a great move, but its base power is not especially high, and neither is Suicune's special attack stat. So the Trick Room is reversed. The Amoonguss is taunted. And Disable is over. Gardevoir able to go for the Hyper Voice. Knocks out Dusclops, but Suicune now showing Surf. So it has spread damage as well as the Scald. Doesn't do much to Amoonguss. Does a little bit to Gardevoir. Amoonguss showing the Giga Drain. Suicune getting worn down more quickly than it was in Game 1. Chandelure here now. Amoonguss switches out to Heatran. We're really seeing that the defensive synergy of that duo that was definitely one of the stronger defensive synergy duos picked up in the draft. Heatran's back. Gardevoir protecting. It's Ice Beam into Heatran. Doesn't do much. It could freeze, but it doesn't. And Gardevoir avoids the Shadow Ball here. Protect on the Suicune. Hyper Voice from Gardevoir. Chandelure probably takes that pretty well. But it's Mega Gardevoir. It still hurts. But Chandelure able to knock it out back with a Shadow Ball. And then gets hit by an Earth Power and knocked out. So that Hyper Voice chip was enough for that to happen. We saw that Earth Power... We saw how much damage Earth Power does to Chandelure in an earlier game. That Hyper Voice chip doing enough there to make the difference by, I think, not a large margin. And I don't even remember what happened in the Scrafty at this point, but somehow the Sinister Hand have run out of Pokemon, except Suicune, which was able to tank things out in Game 1, but has taken more damage over time in this game. No Tyranitar in this game, so Suicune taking Sand Chip, not an issue, but the Noivern, Heatran, and Amoonguss just pivoting around while the Gardevoir attacked where it could, and then the Amoonguss showing Giga Drain after it got taunted has been enough to get the damage they probably need on the Suicune. Hard to imagine it takes 3 KOs from here, and we see the downside also that Suicune, without setting up some Calm Mind boost or something, just doesn't hit that hard, as Amoonguss takes that Ice Beam really well. Suicune survives an Earth Power from Heatran, but yeah, even Surf doesn't knock anything out here, and Heatran gets the KO, and Suicune has fallen. One of the great bulky waters in Pokemon history. Kind of showing its limitations here. And the Sinister Hand might have been playing while hungry, but the Denver Dewotts were hungry for a win here, and they have made a statement, giving their opponent not only their first game loss, but also their first match loss, which, if you recall the previous match, means that the East Coast Espurr are now the sole undefeated team remaining in Pool A. Very competitive season already, but lots more matches to get through here. Next, we have the Minnesota Marshadows taking on the Westwego Whiscash. The Whiscash bringing their shiny new Moltres. No Hippopotas, but we do have the Moltres here. I could see rain stuff. They brought Ludicolo and Gastrodon. I could even see them trying to set up the Gastrodon with Surf. I don't know. Maybe not, but it would be fun. But I could definitely see rain stuff to try to deal with the Mega Charizard Y on the other side. We see a lot of sort of the favorite Pokemon that the Minnesota Marshadows have been using pretty often. The Melodic could be very disruptive into Metagross and Moltres, but and Landorus. Yeah, it's actually just a super strong Pokemon into the physical attacking core from the Whiscash, but potentially very weak into Ludicolo and Gastrodon, so they have to be somewhat careful with that. There's possible Trick Room mode with Metagross, Conkeldurr, Fluttermane. The Mega Sableye is here, able to run maybe a tricky combination of Prankster support options and some way to Mega Evolve and be a win con in its own right. Mega Charizard Y is here. There are a lot of threats to it on the other side, but that hasn't always stopped it before. And we do get a Fire and Flying type showdown here between Charizard and Moltres. And of course, the one Pokemon I haven't called out yet is the Illumise on the Whiscash side, which could have any number of disruptive support options, but Rain Dance is definitely the one that most stands out to me here, especially with Swift Swim Ludicolo. But let's see. We get Illumise and Ludicolo, okay. Leading its Sableye and Conkeldurr. Ludicolo going for Fake Out immediately to Conkeldurr, but Fake Out back from the Sableye to Illumise, so we're not going to see a whole lot of anyone's game plan on turn 1 here. But Illumise will go for Rain Dance on turn 2, and the Sableye just immediately shows Sunny Day, so I was right about the weather plan from the Whiscash, but immediately very disrupted here. They get some compensation as the Ludicolo goes for not a water type attack, which would be weakened by the sun, but instead goes for Giga Drain and crits the Conkeldurr. Still only does like half. Less than half, actually. But a Rock Slide does a lot of damage to Illumise and a little bit to Ludicolo. We see leftovers on the Ludicolo. We see Gastrodon switching in. That'll resist a Rock Slide. Sableye going for Side Will-O-Wisp and a Conkeldurr. So this, I guess, is a way to activate Guts without having to run a Flame Orb. That's a fun tech. Definitely very strong. We see Surf from Ludicolo, but it is drastically weakened by the strong Sunlight. I can't believe how little that did, even with that Sunlight in effect. I'm surprised. It does boost the Gastrodon, though. Drain Punch from Conkeldurr will knock out the Ludicolo and get a lot of recovery, so Conkeldurr now burned, which is good because it's running Guts. Fairly healthy again. Got back a lot of the HP that it lost. And it gets to be burned and activate Guts while having another item. And with how little damage it's taking. And the fact that we haven't seen a Protect so far, it could be an Assault Vest. We'll find out. Moltres here now for the Whiscash. Heat Wave misses Sableye, does a lot of damage to Conkeldurr, but Conkeldurr survives at approximately 1 HP. And just Drain Punches the Gastrodon, one-shots it with a crit, gets more than half of its HP back. I mean, it should still be in range of a Heat Wave now, but yeah, just wiped out that +1 Gastrodon. Sableye going for Foul Play, chipping the Moltres a little bit, showing a Rocky Helmet. Conkeldurr under half after burn damage. We see Illumise lock Conkeldurr into Drain Punch with Encore, which makes sense because Conkeldurr, of course, could go for Mach Punch to try to snipe the low HP Illumise, and I think that is probably what it did because it moves next, and there's no way it's faster than Moltres. So this is probably Drain Punch acting with the priority of Mach Punch because that's the way that it works. Your priority is set when you select the move. But then, of course, Encore forces it to actually use Drain Punch, but the priority is still locked in. Maybe I'm not at my most articulate right now, but I think that confirms that the Conkeldurr did go for a priority attack, presumably Mach Punch here, presumably to try to snipe the Illumise before going down. But I believe because it didn't choose which move to use, it also doesn't get to choose the target, so this is +1 priority Draining Punch into Moltres. It gives Conkeldurr some recovery. If not for the Rocky Helmet, it might have taken a Heat Wave after this. But it takes helmet damage and doesn't take a Heat Wave. But the Marshadows still have 2 more Pokemon that they've only had to show now, and those 2 are Mischievous and Mega Charizard Y. And Mega Charizard Y, I'm guessing, just cleans up this game, but let's see. I can see Mischievous even getting the last couple KOs as well. It could have like Power Gem for the Moltres. Charizard actually just protecting here on a Rain Dance. And a Hurricane as Mischievous sets Trick Room. Yeah, interesting choice to protect there, because Charizard does... The Illumise has already shown Encore. Charizard now Encore locked into Protect. But Mischievous does just get to knock the Moltres... Doesn't even need Power Gem. Knocks the Moltres out with a Shadow Ball, so... I guess there's not really any downside for the Charizard here, as Mischievous should have this one wrapped up. Does get paralyzed by Thunder Wave, but no full para. Just takes out the Illumise with a Shadow Ball. And so Conkeldurr just went crazy in that game. The side Will-O-Wisp into Conkeldurr with a different item that I'm guessing is probably an Assault Vest. Was a great tech. Conkeldurr was able to survive just enough hits to get multiple KOs and also where, I mean, even with the Drain Punch going to Moltres, which I'm guessing is, well, they definitely didn't intend to click Drain Punch, but I'm guessing Moltres wasn't the intended target either. I mean, that did plenty of damage for Mischievous to wrap things up, even while Charizard was stuck protecting. So, solid Game 1 win for the Marshadows. Well, let's see what the Whiscash can come up with in Game 2. Maybe they can find a way to make their Rain team work after pretty decisively losing the Weather War in Game 1. We got Illumise leading with Moltres against Sableye and Conkeldurr again. Okay. Rain Dance immediately. Sableye going straight for the side Will-O-Wisp this time instead of Sunny Day. Maybe not wanting to give Moltres that boosted Heat Wave again. But Moltres going for Hurricane. Unable to miss in the rain, but we see, finally, it is not an Assault Vest. The Surf from Ludicolo just did that little in Game 1. It is a Koba Berry on the Conkeldurr, reducing the damage from the Hurricane 1 time. And buying it time to land a Rock Slide that knocks out Moltres and knocks Illumise down to a Focus Sash. Huge turn there for the Marshadows. Huge payoff to using side Will-O-Wisp instead of a Flame Orb to activate Guts, because it allowed Conkeldurr to run that Koba Berry. And the Whiscash seemingly on the back foot already. They do bring Metagross in here so they could Bullet Punch Conkeldurr before it can land a Mach Punch, but it's also vulnerable to Will-O-Wisp. Especially since that's the last move Sableye clicked, so it's not like they can prevent it with Encore. Conkeldurr switching out here to Mischievous. Metagross will Mega Evolve and Bullet Punch the Mischievous for not a whole lot of damage. Thunder Wave into Sableye. No Will-O-Wisp, it's just foul play into Metagross, and it almost one-shots. Metagross survives at approximately 1 HP, but looking very vulnerable against these two ghost types now. Switches out. We see Gastrodon as their last Pokemon. Mr. Visc is paralyzed. Gastrodon dodges a Will-O-Wisp and an Icy Wind. Either one of those might have taken out Metagross, depending on how much HP it has left. If it's exactly one, then Icy Wind would take it out, and so would Burn Damage. Burn Damage, I think, would regardless. But Gastrodon dodging both. Illumise is knocked out, though. Metagross is back. Not really any better position than it was earlier. The Will-O-Wisp goes into Gastrodon again. This time it connects. Gastrodon going for Surf, wearing these Pokemon down, but showing kind of its limitations, as even in rain, it just doesn't hit super hard without any boosts. And the Metagross has to Protect to avoid the friendly fire. We see Icy Wind. We see Burn Damage. Sableye now going for Sunny Day, establishing weather control as Mischievous tanks an Ice Punch. Sableye knocked out by an Earth Power, but Mischievous still has a chance to move here, but what it does is get fully paralyzed, so it doesn't move. Now we see Charizard in the back for the Marshadows. Metagross protecting, Charizard protecting. I wonder whether they have Solar Beam. We'll just see Surf take out the Mischievous here. That gives Conkeldurr a chance to come back in. Charizard Mega evolves. We see Wide Guard from the Conkeldurr to cover for the Surf. Conkeldurr taken out by an Ice Punch, but Wide Guard will remain in effect for the rest of the turn. Charizard Heat Wave misses Metagross. We see Citrus Berry on the Gastrodon. It's just Recover on the Gastrodon. No Surf this turn, so the Wide Guard doesn't really accomplish anything. Also, Metagross has... Oh, it has shown Bullet Punch. Okay. I forgot. I was about to say maybe it hasn't, but it has. So they do have it. Metagross will protect here. Charizard clicking the Heat Wave might not have Solar Beam. But it and Gastrodon are both not doing a whole lot to each other. Gastrodon does have the... Gastrodon is burned, so that damage will add up, but it does also have Recover. Might well be able to win this. Charizard surviving an Ice Punch, but taking a lot of damage. Big damage into the Gastrodon. Sun is over. Gastrodon recovering. Sun is over, so even if Charizard has Solar Beam, not really a viable option here. I think Gastrodon probably just wins this, but maybe it's like Air Slash Flinch, or maybe Air Slash just KOs. We see Protect from Charizard this turn, Surf from Gastrodon. They probably are setting up to try to win it with like Air Slash, right? And taking a little bit more burn damage first. That's my guess at this point. But no, it's just Heat Wave, but it crits. Oh, that crit definitely won the game, and by extension won the set for the Minnesota Marshadows. Of course, this was game 2. They already kind of dominated game 1, so if they lost this one, it would have just gone to game 3. But... And the Copa Berry Conkeldurr was a great tech that helped to set up for this position, but yeah, a little bit of fortune there. I'm not sure what the chat's referring to here. Somebody dodged something earlier. I mean, the Gastrodon dodged a couple things earlier, but I don't remember specifically what the bail was, but I believe it. But Charizard getting the Heat Wave crit at just the right time, able to wrap this one out with no game 3 needed. Next we have the Grounded Punching Bags taking on the Azure Bay Chatots. And quite the mix of Pokemon here. The Chatots with the usual core of Mega Sceptile, Mega Blastoise, Talonflame, Lucario, Crocodile. I feel like we see the Sylveon pretty often as well. I feel like this is sort of the standard core for this team in my mind. Although I play them next week. We'll see what surprises they throw at me. But, I mean, it's Fire, Water, Grass. It's Fairy, Steel, no Dragon, but Crocodile kind of looks like a dragon. I don't know, they got a lot of strong Pokemon. And on the Punching Bag side, it's Mega Manectric. I know it's not Mega Medicham. Mega Manectric is interesting here because it's their obvious best threat into the Blastoise, but of course the Mega Sceptile gets Lightning Rod. So a lot here could come down to what the Mega choice is in each game for the Chatots, because Blastoise is not especially strong without Mega evolving, but it has a ton of cover if Sceptile Mega evolves. Sceptile, of course, then vulnerable to take your pick: Crobat, Infernape, Slurpuff. So Punching Bags do have a lot of Sceptile answers, but Sceptile is definitely the most disruptive thing into the Mega Manectric. And then Talonflame is very threatening into the dual fighting types here, but very weak to Manectric. I don't know, there's a lot going on. Let's see. When you see teams like this, there's always a lot going on. It's Lucario and Talonflame leading against Medicham and Crobat. I wonder what the game plans were here, but yeah, I'm not going to try to puzzle it out right now. I could see trying to threaten the Sceptile early with the Crobat and maybe remove it to set up for Manectric, but I don't know. Talonflame will protect here. Lucario going for protect as well. Talonflame avoids a Fake Out and Lucario a Brave Bird. Now it's Follow Me from the Lucario. Priority Brave Bird just one-shots the Medicham. Talonflame takes a bunch of damage back, but no doubt worth it, especially as Lucario redirected a Cross Poison, so it takes no damage at all thanks to that Steel typing. Now Mega Manectric is here, immediately threatening into these two, although the Follow Me from Lucario is still awkward for it because it can't just zap Talonflame easily. And again, there could be Mega Sceptile in the back. There also could be Crocodile in the back, which I didn't talk about much, which is not as easily threatened by the Crobat. Manectric will Mega Evolve here, intimidate these two. It's Follow Me again from Lucario. This time Crobat goes for Brave Bird, does a lot of damage. We see Citrus Berry on the Lucario. Manectric taking actually quite a bit of damage from a Talonflame, from a -1 Talonflame Flare Blitz. But holding on just fine and going for Snarl. I don't know if they were just looking for whatever spread damage they had. Maybe, like, Manectric probably, even if it's running Discharge, you probably don't want to click that next to your own Crobat, so maybe they just thought, hopefully, with the Talonflame taking a bunch of recoil and stuff, hopefully the spread damage is enough to knock it out, or maybe they were trying to cover for a special attacker switching in. I can understand either one of those thought processes, but the result is just not a whole lot of damage here, especially to Lucario. Manectric will protect here, avoiding a priority Brave Bird and a priority Vacuum Wave, as Crobat Brave Bird takes out the Talonflame finally. And now the Sceptile's here. It will Mega Evolve immediately and protect. And Lucario protects. Manectric showing presumably Hidden Power Ice, so there's its option to take out the Sceptile. But of course that can be redirected into Lucario and won't do a whole lot to that Pokemon. There's still the Brave Bird issue though. Well, let's see. Oh, and Sceptile just outspeeds Manectric. It does have the higher base speed. I didn't remember. I knew Manectric was pretty fast, but of course Sceptile is also faster before Mega Evolving, so it makes sense. Sceptile to protect that last turn to get its speed boost. Scouting for Hidden Power Ice is also a plus for the rest of the set, but for this game, it's able to just knock out the Manectric with a Dragon Pulse. Lucario surviving another Brave Bird. I figured, based on the previous damage, that it probably would survive that, which is why I said, even if Manectric is faster, the Hidden Power Ice could just be redirected. Now we see Slurpuff for the punching bags. Very threatening into Sceptile, but very threatened by Lucario, except that Lucario can just be knocked out by Crobat, except Crobat protects here, so Lucario will get a chance to do something, but it just protects as well. Play rough into Lucario, but everybody protected except Slurpuff, so nothing to see here. It's Follow Me from Lucario. Crobat will survive a Dragon Pulse narrowly. A little bit more than 1 HP, so it will get a chance to knock out the Lucario here, and it does with a Brave Bird. And Slurpuff now with a chance to attack the Sceptile. Big play rough, one-shots. And there's still one Pokemon left for the Chatots. It's Blastoise. It can't Mega Evolve because Sceptile already did. Crobat protecting, avoiding a Fake Out that would surely KO. And we see Yawn on the Slurpuff. Great tech. Crobat, although Crobat actually knocks itself out with this Brave Bird. I think if I'm controlling this Crobat, maybe I go for Cross Poison here because I don't know. I don't know if Blastoise has any way to KO Slurpuff. I don't know how much like a crit Flash Cannon does. It's not like I've calculated that before watching the replays. But I feel like if there's any way the punching bags could lose this game, it's they knock out their own Crobat and Blastoise somehow one-shots Slurpuff or gets a crit, burn, Scald or something before going to sleep. I feel like I'd rather have 2 Pokemon left after my Crobat's action, but it does go for Brave Bird here and knock itself out. We'll see if they're punished for that. Blastoise takes a play rough and just goes for Icy Wind, probably trying to find a way to knock out the Crobat and do something to the Slurpuff while it has to take a nap. So it effectively worked out the same way. So I said I'd probably rather have the Crobat because if Blastoise targets that, then I still have Slurpuff healthy or while the Blastoise is asleep. That's basically what I'm saying, giving the opponent more targets that they have to deal with instead of removing one for them in the end game. But it kind of actually works out to exactly the same thing because the Blastoise clicked Icy Wind trying to hit the Crobat with that anyway, so Crobat not being in there anymore didn't really matter. The important thing was the Blastoise clicked a weak attack that wasn't doing very much. It wasn't doing enough to Slurpuff ever, even with a crit or something, that Blastoise would be able to hold on and win the game. So The on Slurpuff really coming through there. Pretty solid game 1 win from the grounded punching bags. And with the Mega Manectric showing Hidden Power Ice, the Mega Sceptile is not as strong an answer to it as one might have thought, although being faster and threatening with the Dragon Pulse is definitely still pretty significant. But a lot of different positional tricks these teams can throw at each other, so we're just going to have to go to game 2 and see what happens here. We've got Talonflame leading with Lucario once again, this time against Slurpuff and Infernape. Infernape showing an Air Balloon to help it deal with the Crocodile, I guess. Talonflame will just protect turn 1, so will Lucario. We've seen this before. Talonflame avoids an Infernape Fake Out. Lucario avoids a Yawn. And now it's Follow Me Lucario. It's Brave Bird Talonflame. One-shots Infernape. So that's something. This is a lot like game 1, though. Protect, and then Follow Me, one-shot a fighting type with Brave Bird. Pretty much exactly like game 1 so far, except that Slurpuff is on the field already and able to go for that Yawn into Lucario, so that'll take away the Follow Me option one way or another pretty soon. Lucario will stay on the field, which means it will fall asleep if it survives this turn, but uses that last action before nap time to give a helping hand to Talonflame, and that Brave Bird is gonna hurt if it goes into something that doesn't protect. We see Crobat protect, but not Slurpuff. It gets one-shot by the Brave Bird. Talonflame takes a lot of recoil damage, but it's still here. It's Gen 6, so it still has priority on that Brave Bird. Lucario is asleep, but Talonflame taking 2 KOs would seem to put the Chatots pretty far ahead, especially as we see that the last Pokemon for the punching bags is Tangela. So no Mega Manectric in this game. Crobat is kind of the only significant offensive threat left, especially if Sceptile's in the back. Talonflame, Lucario, and Sceptile are all extremely strong into Tangela, so I'm a little surprised to see Tangela here at all. We'll see what they have planned for it. Or we won't, because it just gets one-shot by Brave Bird. Talonflame knocking itself out here, but took 3 other Pokemon with it. And Crobat just going for Cross Poison. Maybe thinking Lucario would switch out there, I don't know. But Lucario's asleep, there's probably not much reason for it to switch out. And Crobat going to be hard-pressed to take down Lucario, Blastoise, and something else now. No Mega Evolution from the Blastoise is interesting. Just going for Icy Wind, maybe trying to set up for Mega Sceptile to get the guaranteed win if Crobat somehow takes one of these down, but I don't think that's even going to happen. Blastoise doesn't take very much from a Cross Poison. Lucario staying asleep here, Blastoise surviving a Brave Bird, Crobat taking recoil damage, and that Icy Wind hitting hard into the flying type, knocking Crobat out. So Talonflame just went crazy in this game, but I mean, the obvious difference between game 1 and game 2 is that the punching bags didn't bring Mega Manectric this time. They brought the Slurpuff in earlier, which was interesting because it took the Follow Me off the board, but in the time it took to do that, Talonflame got 3 KOs at the cost of itself because Mega Manectric wasn't here to intimidate and offensively threaten it. So I'm guessing we'll see the Mega Manectric in game 3, but one way to find out. Talonflame leads with Lucario once again against Manectric and Infernape. Is it going to be Protect? Infernape switches out to Medicham. They brought both fighting types this time. Talonflame perhaps looking hungrily at those targets, like it's going to feast on them, but Manectric will Mega Evolve turn 1 and intimidate Talonflame, so we'll see about that. It is Protect from Talonflame. It's Protect from Lucario. Same turn 1 for the Chatots all 3 games. Manectric going for Snarl. I'm not sure why in that position. Maybe thought that something would switch out. That would make sense. Talonflame being pretty threatened there. We see Sceptile come in here. Medicham going for Endure. Follow Me from Lucario, and it's still Snarl from the Manectric. That will weaken the special attack stat on the Sceptile. Sceptile actually switching right back out to Talonflame. Talonflame, of course, no longer intimidated. Manectric protects. Lucario clicks Follow Me, but takes a Drain Punch from the Medicham and gets knocked out. Lucario, my guess is if you're switching Talonflame in on Manectric, you would like to have that Follow Me still available next turn, so that's a huge Drain Punch, potentially. Getting rid of the Lucario more efficiently than the Slurpuff tried to in Game 2. We see Blastoise here, so once again it's both Megas for the Chatots. Blastoise not choosing to Mega Evolve, they'll probably Mega Evolve the Sceptile. He's clicking Fake Out into Manectric, it crits. It does some decent damage actually. And Talonflame crits it as well with a U-turn. So the Chatots really trying everything they can to remove this Manectric here, critting it with everything, but for now it's still here. Sceptile will come in, it's not Mega Evolved yet. Actually, it's Blastoise Mega Evolving this game. Sceptile not getting the Lightning Rod, also not getting the double Ice Weakness, just keeping the single one, but it just protects here. Sceptile's also faster than Manectric if it Mega Evolves. Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised to see the well, okay. If I have to guess why the Blastoise is Mega Evolving here, The Sceptile is their best answer to Manectric. They could be worried about like an Ice Punch Medicham and thinking they need Blastoise to beat that, but also, of course, Blastoise is the better answer to Infernape in the back. But then Sceptile is faster than that too and threatens it with neutral Dragon Pulse, and Talonflame, we know, just wipes out Infernape. So obviously I don't know the game plans of the coaches. I'm just trying to guess what's going on as I watch the replays afterward. It's me, Monday morning quarterback, Monday night quarterback in this case. I don't know better than the coaches, but it feels to me like Sceptile is probably the better Pokemon to Mega Evolve here. And you know, the mindset I try to have with these is I wonder what it is that I'm missing. Maybe they think they need Blastoise to give them a better... maybe they think Blastoise gives them the best way to beat the Medicham. I don't know. Or maybe they're worried about the Snarl. Blastoise will take a Snarl there. Hit a Psycho Cut from Medicham. It'll hit back with Icy Wind for not a whole lot of damage at -1. Maybe they think with the Icy Wind speed control, Sceptile can just handle Manectric anyway without Mega Evolving. That could be closer to the right track. And Blastoise, I don't remember what kind of stat boost it gets from Mega Evolving, but if it gets any boost to its defenses, which I think it probably does, that could actually matter here as it narrowly takes a Drain Punch. So yeah, maybe I just didn't see the vision. We see Water Pledge do a little bit more than half the Medicham. Now Infernape is here, though. Protect from Sceptile, protect from Blastoise. Talonflame... Talonflame is eating good if it gets back onto the field. Oh, they're going for the Swamp combo. Okay, makes sense. Talonflame should just feast on these two if it gets back onto the field, but the Punching Bags do have another Pokemon as well, and if it's Crobat, slowing it down could be extremely important, especially since it definitely just wipes out Talonflame with Brave Bird and Blastoise can't take another hit. Medicham, though, using Endure, surviving the combined Pledge attack, but they will have the speeds dropped by the combo now. Oh, but then Infernape still has to move this turn. Medicham survives the Bulldoze with Endure. Blastoise is knocked out. Sceptile is its speed lowered by Endure, but again, the Swamp should be very beneficial to the Chatots here. Medicham showing the Custap Berry. Endure Custap Berry makes sense. So I keep talking up what valuable speed control the Swamp is here. It looks to me like it could have won the game for the Chatots. Maybe it will, but Custap Berry flipping that speed control on its head once again. I feel like it came up last week. If you don't know what the Custap Berry does, when the Pokemon is at low HP, I don't remember the exact range, but very low, it gets priority one time on whatever move it's using. Used to get some play in singles with like Fortress, setting up an entry hazard, taking a hit with Sturdy, and then using Custap Berry Explosion to get off the field. Stuff like that. The priority Brave Bird comes out from Talonflame first, but it goes into Infernape to protect. Medicham lands a priority Psycho Cut into Talonflame. Doesn't quite KO, but Talonflame no longer able to just Brave Bird everything. However, Sceptile will knock out Medicham. Talonflame... Oh, Talonflame would love to one-shot Infernape with Brave Bird, but then it'll get knocked out too, and how do they ever beat Crobat? That's the problem for the Chatots right now. The Blastoise might, even after Mega Evolving, still have gotten worn down too quickly. Infernape goes for the double protect, doesn't get it, gets wiped out by the priority Brave Bird, but Talonflame is going to get knocked out here too. And it's just Crobat versus Sceptile. Sceptile going first thanks to the Swamp. Dragon Pulse crits and still doesn't do a whole lot, and that is the problem, I guess, with non-Mega Sceptile. Not that strong and doesn't have stab on the Dragon Pulse. Talonflame looked extremely well positioned there, but as they say in chat, boomed by the Custap Berry. Medicham being able to get that big priority hit. Also thanks to Talonflame targeting into the Infernape that turn, right? Talonflame had a chance with the priority Brave Bird to take out Medicham, but makes sense, went for the healthier target that it could also wipe out. But the Custap Berry gave them enough damage that Talonflame was not well positioned anymore because knocking Infernape out got rid of itself, and then they didn't have anything for Crobat. I can understand the Mega Blastoise decision more now that I've seen how it played out. I don't think Mega Sceptile saves this one anyway. So, just a tough one all around for the Chatots here. Custap Berry, Medicham, definitely the hero of this game, and a solid win for the Grounded Punching Bags. Very well executed by them. Next, we have the Nothing Burger taking on the cooler London Vespiquens. And I know that when they posted the replays in the Discord, the Vespiquen wrote something else in spoilered text and got a lot of vomit reactions on it, so I don't know what I'm going to see here, but it's the 2 Megas and 2 Follow Me Pokemon and Hitmontop and Liepard. We're used to that. And on the Nothing Burger side, it's Mega Bayonet, Shuckle, Escavalier, Whimsicott, Machamp, and Tangrowth. I don't know what's going on. Let's jump in. Alright, Shuckle and Tangrowth. I keep wanting to say Tangela. We just saw that last set, though, not in this one. Against Liepard and Kangaskhan. Opponent seems to have tried to get them to choose which Mega it would be, but they didn't answer, and Kangaskhan is here. Kangaskhan will Mega Evolve and fake out Tangrowth. So that Pokemon will flinch, and it's just Yawn into Shuckle. And Power Split into Kangaskhan, so Shuckle heavily nerfing Kangaskhan's attack stat with that. And buffing its own, only to get intimidated by Hitmontop, but somehow I keep forgetting about Contrary Shuckle, even though they keep running it week after week. So this is now +1 attack Shuckle with its attack stat averaged with Mega Kangaskhan. That could put in some work, we'll see. Kangaskhan will protect here. Shuckle, of course, even though it's a rock type, also not weak to fighting because it's a bug type. So Hitmontop, not a massive offensive threat into it, especially since Shuckle has famously some of the highest defensive stats in the game. So on this Wolf Glick bug month, we might see this bug typing come in handy for Shuckle here. But let's see. Rock Slide from Tangrowth, Kangaskhan protected. Hitmontop doesn't take much from that, but it shows the eject button, so it switches right back out of there. Maybe it'll switch in and get Shuckle to +2 attack. That would be funny, but Liepard's here for now. Shuckle going for its own Rock Slide does some damage to Liepard. Honestly, it would have been cooler to see more damage, but that was something. And Shuckle will... Oh, Shuckle got yawned. I got distracted by the Power Split, and I overlooked that. But it will fall asleep here, only to show that it has a Chesto Berry. My guess is they didn't prep for Yawn Liepard. They probably have rest on Shuckle, but maybe they don't. But in any case, the Chesto Berry, the berry that specifically cures sleep, waking the Shuckle up immediately here. Of course, Liepard gets can click the priority Yawn again, but Hitmontop does switch in here, gets the Shuckle to +2 attack, just as I hoped. Shuckle will get drowsy again, but not before throwing off a Rock Slide, that was Tangrowth Rock Slide, and now Shuckle Rock Slide. Gets the KO on Liepard. A lot of Rock Slide spam. I guess that is earlier gen VGC right there. Kangaskhan is back. Tangrowth will protect here. Of course, the Vespiquens can just fake out Shuckle and then it falls asleep. But they still have the problem of actually knocking it out during its sleep turns. They actually fake out both targets. Tangrowth protecting, though. Of course, it is at -2 attack. It'll switch out here to Bayonet. Bayonet will show Kangaskhanite, which obviously we know about, and Hitmontop had an eject button, so no new information from the Frisk. We see Wide Guard from Hitmontop. Of course, Shuckle's asleep anyway. Look how little it takes from Power Up Punch, although Kangaskhan is now boosting. Bayonet can Mega Evolve here. The Power Up Punch damage adding up as Kangaskhan keeps stacking boosts, already at +4 now. Hitmontop going for Rock Slide. Shuckle weak to Rock, but still taking that pretty well. But Bayonet will flinch here, but Shuckle will wake up, throw a Rock Slide back. Doesn't do as much damage as I thought it might. I guess +2 attack Shuckle averaged with Mega Kangaskhan is still not as strong as I was hoping when I saw them make those plays. Bayonet going for the priority Toxic now, but missing into Kangaskhan, as Kangaskhan able to knock Shuckle out with one more Power Up Punch. Only needs one hit to do it, so only gets the +5 attack. Rock Slide from Hitmontop doing some chip. Now the Tangrowth is back. It's Toxic into Hitmontop. It connects this time. +5 return, just one-shots Tangrowth. Rock Slide still chipping the Mega Bayonet. And now Whimsicott's here, just protecting here. Bayonet protects. Do they have a way to stop the +5 Mega Kangaskhan? The Shuckle was a lot of fun to watch, but Kangaskhan switching out and back in and spamming Power Up Punch while Shuckle was asleep would seem to have turned this game around for the Vespiquens, except just as I start to say that, we see Whimsicott click Attract into Kangaskhan. Now this is a more reasonable competitive choice than you might think, because Kangaskhan is a female-only species. You can guarantee if your opponent has a Kangaskhan that it's always going to be female, because it has to be. So a male Pokemon with Attract can always infatuate it. It's actually not the first time we've seen a tech like that this season. I think it was the Glasgow Girafarig in maybe week 1 brought... Is it called Captivate? The move that lowers special attack of the opposite gender or something like that on a female Pokemon into an opponent's Latios. It's the same principle here. If you know that a specific target Pokemon is a guaranteed gender, then suddenly Attract gets a lot more consistent. Of course, it's still a roll whether you actually benefit from it. We'll find out whether they do here, but that's a fun bring. Now Toxic lands into the Kangaskhan. Kangaskhan, though, does get to click a power-up punch into Whimsicott. Doesn't KO. I was wondering, because Parental Bond, the first hit did about half, and with Parental Bond, the second hit does less than the first one. It has, I don't remember what the reduction is, but it's reduced power. Is it 2/3 power in Gen 6? Or is it half? I don't remember. Half seems more reasonable. 2/3 sounds pretty broken. Although Parental Bond famously was pretty broken in Gen 6. I don't remember for sure. I'm going to guess it's half. Point is, it does less damage. So even at +6, the first one does half, and then the second one not quite enough to get the KO. So, and that means Kangaskhan stays infatuated as well. So Whimsicott will still have a chance to clutch this. Or it'll be knocked out immediately by Hitmontop. Never mind. Bayonet can protect here, and Hitmontop will be taken out by toxic damage, but then Kangaskhan is going for... Kangaskhan is Fake Out, Protect, Power Up, Punch, and Return. Wait, can Togekiss attack? No, I got it right the first time. Can Togetic attack? Wait, Kangaskhan can't hit ghost types. Why did you bring I mean, these are reasonable moves on Mega Kangaskhan. Fake Out, Protect, Power Up, Punch, Return. Makes sense. But you brought that into a ghost type Mega. It gets Sucker Punch. Well, Sucker Punch wouldn't save them here because the opponent could just play around it. I guess like Crunch. But I guess you just try to deal with that with your other Pokemon, like maybe Liepard. Or maybe Togetic can attack here. If Togetic can attack and knock out Bayonet, then it's fine. But I'm a little bit scared by the coach saying this in the chat. Get ready for Janus. Because I think maybe that means the Togetic can't attack. But of course, Kangaskhan also gets Scrappy before it Mega Evolves, or at least that's one of the abilities it can have. But it Mega Evolved early this game. They can knock out this Bayonet, right? Surely. We see Destiny Bond on the Bayonet. Shockwave on the Togetic. Alright, I don't know why, but that'll do it. Shockwave was an accident. I can't imagine what other move they could have meant to have instead of Shockwave. On a Togetic? I don't know, but it's damage. It's not normal type. It gets the job done here. The cooler London Vespiquens take game 1, so who might argue with the process? Let's see what other Janus they bring up in game 2. Okay. It's Bayonet and Tangrowth against Alakazam this time, and Hitmontop. Intimidate from the Hitmontop will... we don't get any new information from the Frisk, but it will weaken both of these two, as we know they probably want to go for physical attacks. Togetic comes in here. Alakazam Mega Evolves and traces Regenerator. That's fun. It can get some recovery later if it wants. Bayonet will Mega Evolve immediately. Alakazam will Protect, and so will Bayonet. And Tangrowth will try to, but it's the last action of the turn, so Protect fails. So not a whole lot going on so far. Now it's Rage Powder from the Tangrowth, Toxic into Alakazam. Psychic crits and still doesn't KO. That's some impressive bulk. Tangrowth is an impressively bulky Pokemon, but yeah, showing it there. Taking the crit Psychic from Mega Alakazam. Also redirecting the Yawn from Togetic. So Tangrowth will be drowsy now. It'll switch out. We know it has Regenerator because that just got copied, so it gets some recovery from that. Now Shuckle comes in here. Bayonet protecting on a Psychic and an Encore. Of course, it's not priority Encore, so Bayonet should get a chance to use another move and not just be locked into Protect, or it could switch out, which it does, to Tangrowth. Tangrowth knocked out by a Psychic crit. I doubt that crit mattered. Maybe it's possible that I don't think it mattered. But Alakazam just hates this Tangrowth, I guess. Just keeps critting it. We'll see what Shuckle can do now. Is it Power Split? We see Tailwind from the Togetic. We do see Power Split into the Alakazam. And the poison damage racking up too. Of course, Alakazam can switch out, get some Regenerator recovery, get its special attack stat back. Bayonet's here. Pachirisu's here on an air balloon. Bayonet's missing Toxic again. Togetic is just going for Tailwind. We know it has Yawn, Encore, Tailwind, and Shockwave. I still can't imagine what Shockwave was supposed to be, but we know it has that, so it could do damage here if it wants. Knock Off will remove its Eviolite. Now Toxic into Pachirisu. Nuzzle will paralyze the Bayonet. Encore will lock the Bayonet into Toxic. Rock Slide from Shuckle, not doing very much because it averaged its attack stat with Mega Alakazam. That's still not a very high attack stat. And it even was doing less than I expected, averaged with Kangaskhan with stat boost. So yeah, really not doing much now. But the Toxic damage will add up. Balloon is broken for whatever that's worth. Togetic is poisoned now. We see Super Fang taking out half of Shuckle's HP, but then the Shockwave afterward is kind of sad. But so is the Rock Slide. But it's the Toxic damage that's the real thing here. That's going to add up over time. And of course, escalate over time. Bayonet stuck clicking Toxic, of course, kind of makes it hard for him on top to switch in. But Alakazam will switch in here. It'll copy Contrary. It'll dodge a Rock Slide. Is Bayonet still going to be stuck clicking Toxic? Yes, the Encore is still in effect. Bayonet, though, surviving a Psychic. Shuckle shows that it does have rest, so that is what the Chesto Berry is for. Shuckle proving kind of hard to remove because it is an extremely bulky Pokemon. Even as it's not doing a whole lot of damage with its Rock Slide, that tiny bit of chip plus the Toxic is adding up. Bayonet finally free to click another move here. Goes for Destiny Bond. I guess it's paralyzed, so Togetic could just Encore it again. So Destiny Bond makes sense because that's Prankster boosted, and it's a way to remove Alakazam. It gets around the Encore because it has priority, so it'll go faster despite Bayonet being paralyzed. And yeah, if Alakazam had attacked Bayonet here, then they both would have been knocked out. Instead, it attacks Shuckle. But it gets the special defense drop from Psychic, which, thanks to Contrary, is a special defense boost. That's a fun little bit of luck for the Nothing Burger there. Togetic setting the Tailwind back up, but does that really matter here? Doesn't really do anything for them. And Togetic will drop to Toxic damage. Now Hitmontop is here. It'll give Shuckle +1 attack. Bayonet fully paralyzed. Shuckle taking a Focus Blast pretty well. A Rock Slide also pretty well. But these Pokemon are getting worn down. Shuckle flinches. Might have liked to rest there. Will not get to. As Alakazam switches out for Pachirisu. The Vespiquens making these switches, of course, means the Toxic damage goes back to not being very much. So they're buying some turns this way. Hitmontop still not poisoned. And with Bayonet fully paralyzed, I wouldn't be surprised if it tried to poison Hitmontop here or go for Destiny Bond. But either way, unable to do that. Hitmontop will take 2 KOs with the Rock Slide. Shuckle flinching earlier, of course, meant it couldn't get another rest. And although that poison damage was ticking up over time, we do see the weakness of that game plan here as the Nothing Burger did get their team worn down. Just kind of running out of Pokemon now. It's just Whimsicott against Hitmontop and Pachirisu with Mega Alakazam in the back. Whimsicott will just protect here. Avoiding a Bullet Punch. So that Bullet Punch is going to be pretty hard to deal with, needless to say. Does get a little bit more Toxic damage on Pachirisu. Actually takes the Bullet Punch reasonably well. But Dazzling Gleam not knocking anything out so far. It does eject the Hitmontop out of here. Alakazam will come in and copy Prankster. Whimsicott will get paralyzed by a Nuzzle. A little bit more Toxic damage, but no KOs. But Pachirisu will be knocked out now as Whimsicott protects. Prevents Pachirisu from U-turning out. Alakazam also very low at this point. But Hitmontop still not paralyzed and still has that Fake Out and Bullet Punch. No Fake Out this turn. Just go straight for Bullet Punch. Makes sense, taking the damage. Although, actually, if Whimsicott Moonblast Hitmontop here... No, because Alakazam could knock out Whimsicott. I don't think there's a way. It goes for a it goes for a Tract into Alakazam. Alakazam happens to be female, not a guaranteed gender Pokemon like Kangaskhan. So that might get Whimsicott through this turn, but it still just doesn't have any way to beat the Hitmontop. It doesn't take another Bullet Punch. Alakazam is immobilized by Love and knocked out by the Toxic, but yeah. Hitmontop never getting poisoned means it wins this. And honestly, the full para on Mega Bayonet in its last turn on the field might have decided this game. I'm pretty sure it probably went for either Toxic into Hitmontop or Destiny Bond. Destiny Bond would be better because it would just KO Hitmontop. But even with Toxic, maybe Whimsicott has a way to protect stall through this. Probably not. If Bayonet went for Destiny Bond, though, then that full para probably decided the game. Toxic, maybe not, but... well, a lot of cheese on both sides here, but the paralysis definitely coming through for the Vespiquens. And the fact that they managed to get one of their Pokemon not poisoned and switch around to get more time against the poison damage. And okay, well, I think Shockwave. Well, okay, now we get a little bit of light shed on what happened here. Yeah, probably not worth doing again, but there we go. Shockwave instead of Thunderwave. I don't think Togetic learns this. Maybe Togetic does learn Thunderwave, actually. Maybe it does. I'm not going to check. That's not worth a trip to Bulbapedia. I mean, Shockwave saved game 1 for them, so can they really complain? Alright, we move on. We got the Ryan Green Blue Porygon 2s taking on the Book Club in what I think is the last set of Pool A for this week. I mean, I think I played the actual last set because we even played a day late, but last set to cover here. The Porygon 2s brought Aurorus, that's fun. They brought Trick Room stuff, Snow stuff, Jellicent, a lot of the usual from the Porygon 2s. And on the Book Club side, Mega Lopunny without Mega Gallade, so just the one Mega. Possible Rain Mode with Tornadus, Crawdaunt, Zapdos. Arcanine and Scizor and Mega Lopunny could all be very threatening into the Snow Core, but things could get flipped around on them pretty quickly if Trick Room goes up, because they don't look very well positioned into Trick Room, but they do look very well positioned if Trick Room doesn't go up. Basically, this feels like a classic Season 9 set where a lot might come down to the Trick Room play. But let's see. Lopunny and Tornadus against Manshou and Bronzong. We see Lopunny Mega Evolve and fake out the Bronzong, denying a Trick Room at least for this turn. Bronzong gets taunted, so this play makes a lot of sense, because if Bronzong had a Mental Herb, it would be consumed here, but it still wouldn't get to set Trick Room because it would flinch, and then they could taunt it again next turn. Instead, we see that it doesn't have a Mental Herb, so that's good information for the rest of the set, and a little bit of luck for the Book Club there, as Lopunny dodges High Jump Kick. Manshou does a bunch of damage to itself. Tornadus now will switch out to Scizor. Lopunny can just snipe the Manshou with a return because that took a bunch of damage already, missing a High Jump Kick. Bronzong, taunted, unable to go for Trick Room, just goes for a Gyro Ball into Tornadus, but hits the Scizor switching in, does like no damage, and now Abomasnow is brought onto the field with no Trick Room up. Not at all looking well positioned into these two, and of course it's Mega Abomasnow, so it has to be running its Mega Stone. There isn't even a Chople Berry or something. Bronzong will switch out to Aurorus. That's 2 fighting weaknesses, 2 steel weaknesses. Aurorus is weak twice over to both of those. Abomasnow will Mega Evolve here and use Protect. Avoid a Bullet Punch. And a Drain Punch. So, I mean, the Porygon 2 is doing what they can here, right? They brought in a Pokemon with a huge target on its back and protected to prevent any damage this turn. Unfortunately, the Pokemon they switched in to get Bronzong off the field also has a huge target on its back here. Get a little bit of Hail Chip too. Aurora switching out now to Bronzong. Of course, Abomasnow just protected, so... Well, maybe then they're thinking... So it's a pretty safe target for the Book Club, except then maybe the Book Club are thinking Abomasnow just protected, so that's what they'll switch out this turn. So it's a tricky position, actually, for both sides. But Bronzong does switch in for the Aurorus. Takes a Bullet Punch from Life Orb Scizor, as, okay, they split their targets. The Drain Punch goes into Abomasnow, does a lot of damage, but it doesn't KO. Abomasnow gets to go for Hidden Power Fire and take out the Scizor. I don't have to guess the Hidden Power this time. Scizor only has 1 weakness. So, I mean, the Porygon 2s, they were put in a really tough spot when the Bronzong got taunted at turn 1, but they are finding ways to play through it so far. But let's see what if Tornadus comes in now, the Bronzong could just get taunted again. Instead, it's Crawdaunt, actually. But Lopunny Drain Punch will take out the Abomasnow. No Protect from Abomasnow this turn. And Crawdaunt Knockoff just takes out the Bronzong, so Trick Room not going up in this game anyway. We see Citrus Berry as its item. That would be very helpful if it could take a hit, but it did not take that Knockoff. Crawdaunt hitting way too hard with that super effective Stab, Adaptability, Knockoff into a Pokemon with an item. And now Aurorus is stranded on the field to get wiped out by a Drain Punch. And that's exactly what happens. And just like I said at preview, this game, it really takes me back to Season 9 in that it feels like so much of this matchup comes down to whether Trick Room is up or not. And in this game, the Book Club completely shut down the Trick Room option. They had a really very strong lead into it, again with the fake out covering for a Mental Herb that wasn't there, it turned out, while they taunted the Bronzong. Trick Room never went up, and Yeah, the Mega Lopunny was able to just feast on all these fighting weaknesses. So, the Porygon 2s brought Togekiss and Jellicent to this set. Togekiss is their best answer to these fighting and dark stabs coming out from Lopunny and Crawdaunt. Of course, it is weak to the Steel Stab from Scizor. Jellicent resists Steel, immune to not immune to fighting because Mega Lopunny gets Scrafty. Jellicent not that great, except that it's probably one of their best Scizor answers. But and the Scizor the problem because I could see them bringing Togekiss to the next game. Togekiss could be extremely valuable, is my point. Especially now that both sides know that it's not Mental Herb Bronzong, because the Book Club are more flexible in their options now, knowing that taunting Bronzong once will work. So the Follow Me cover from Togekiss could be extremely valuable. But then I can see the Book Club adjusting to that. I would not be surprised to see the Togekiss show up in Game 2, but strong Game 1 win for the Book Club, and it looks... I mean, we'll see. The Porygon 2s probably have some adjustments up their sleeve, but it looks like a tough one for them. Even in Game 2. We see Lopunny and Tornadus lead again. I guess what I was saying is, if I'm the Book Club, maybe I think about leading Scizor because I'm anticipating the Togekiss to help them get Trick Room up. But we see Jellicent and Manchow leading, actually. Maybe Jellicent has the Mental Herb and will set Trick Room here. That would make sense. Of course, the Book Club can make exactly the same play again. Wow, Manchow and Lopunny have the same base speed, so if they both go for Fake Out, then that shakes things up a bit, but yeah, Manchow Fake Out could be disruptive because it could also deny the taunt. My point, though, is, that aside, apart from that one wild card that they have to think about, they can make the same play again because Mega Lopunny with Scrappy, Mega Lopunny with the ability Scrappy, not the Pokemon Scrafty, can Fake Out a Ghost type. Let's see. Tornadus actually switching out immediately to Crawdaunt. Lopunny will Mega Evolve. We see a Fake Out come out first from the Manchow into Crawdaunt, so trying to stop the taunt with their own Fake Out, but it is Fake Out from Lopunny into Jellicent. It actually does quite a bit of damage too. I did like a third. Jellicent now switching out. We don't see it click Trick Room or anything else. Well, actually, yeah, this was the better play for the Book Club. I mean, again, I'm just spitballing based largely on the Pokemon on the field, but the Manchow clicking Fake Out into Lopunny would be a speed tie. We know now that Manchow would have, or if they're both, they don't have to be at the same speed stat, but it could be a speed tie. We know now that that Manchow would have gone first, but they didn't necessarily know that at the time. Lopunny can Fake Out the Jellicent to stop a Trick Room that turn, but if Tornadus goes for Taunt and it gets flinched, and Jellicent does in fact have the Mental Herb, then it's a lot harder for them to stop the Trick Room on the next turn. So they made a heads-up play that was definitely just better, switching to the Crawdaunt, because Crawdaunt comes in on the Fake Out, takes a bit of damage, but no big deal. The only thing is, like, I imagine that Jellicent switches out here because it's offensively threatened by the Crawdaunt. It's not going to take a knockoff better than Bronzong did. The only thing is Crawdaunt is threatened by the Manchow. So I'm not sure how that plays into things, but let's see. Abomasnow hits the Hail. Manchow actually just switches out to Bronzong. They potentially brought two Trick Room setters here because it's just that important in this matchup, or because stacking fighting weaknesses was no good. It's just return into the Jellicent slot. Makes sense, hitting that as hard as they can. Goes into the Abomasnow, does just under half, and it's Waterfall into Bronzong for a lot of damage, activating the Citrus Berry. Bronzong is in danger now for sure. Abomasnow protects, avoids a return, but Waterfall takes out the Bronzong. Crawdaunt is just hitting too hard for the Porygon 2's Trick Room setters to stand up to it, and I'll be honest, I'm getting a little scared watching this because I play the Book Club later this season, but at least I'm getting some information on how they play these things. Yeah, the only thing I'm thinking is, could Manchow have just attacked Crawdaunt last turn? But maybe they had something to cover for that. I don't know. We didn't see that timeline. As it is, though, the Crawdaunt completely doing its job here, putting out just too much offensive pressure for the Porygon 2s to get any footing, with Mega Lopunny also doing a lot of the same. Manchow comes back in, establishes Fake Out pressure for the Porygon 2s. Lopunny will switch out in response to Scizor. Abomasnow will Mega Evolve. Fake Out goes into Scizor, and I was going to say Blizzard is resisted by both targets, but actually it's Grass Whistle from Abomasnow. Putting Scizor to sleep. Grass Whistle, I believe, has the same accuracy as Sing, so it's not consistent, but it does land this time. And honestly, Sleep Shenanigans might be the Porygon 2's way back into this. It makes sense to me. Mienshao, though, will get hit hard by a waterfall and knocked down to its focus sash, which will promptly mean that it'll be KO'd by the hail damage. So the offensive pressure is still putting in a lot of work, even as Scizor takes a nap. Jellicent is here now. It's just going to Shadow Ball the Crawdaunt, showing that it's actually faster. So maybe it's not Trick Room Jellicent, but maybe it's the same kind of offensive set we've seen from them before. I also think Crawdaunt is probably choice banded from the way it just keeps clicking Waterfall even into a grass type. Which helps to explain why it's hitting so hard and also means it definitely doesn't have a Chople Berry. It'll take a Blizzard and the hail damage, just barely, at approximately 1 HP. And so Scizor being asleep and Crawdaunt being presumably locked into Waterfall, and not able to target Jellicent with that because Jellicent could have the Water Absorb, actually means that the Porygon 2s, I mean, they're still not getting a comfortable position, but they're wearing these Pokemon down at least. Crawdaunt will not drop the hail damage here, actually, because the hail damage ends. But it's not super well positioned with that Waterfall. But then Scizor wakes up and Bullet Punches a Bomb of Snow, so that's one problem solved for Porygon 2s. Shadow Ball will go into Crawdaunt here and knock it out, but now Mega Lopunny is back. You can fake out Jellicent. That does so much damage. And a knockoff from Scizor seals the game. And we see it as Choice Scarf Jellicent, not a bulky Mental Herb Trick Room kind of thing. I feel like I definitely didn't quite capture all of the nuances of what was going on in the early game, but yeah, the switch to Crawdaunt to put out offensive pressure from that, I feel like it could have backfired, maybe, depending on some of the details of the opponent's sets, but it paid off massively for the book club, and just a very solid pair of games from them all the way through, just never letting that Trick Room go up and overwhelming with offensive pressure. Once again, making me really scared for when I play this team later in the season, so congrats to them. Very well done. We move on now to Pool B, and I'm going to try to just power through this, because honestly, I need to go to bed soon. We've got the Foggy Fearows taking on the Glasgow Girafarig. The Girafarig bringing their Rain Core, bringing nice baby blue Vivillon, matching their team. The rest of their team very pleasantly, very blue and green color scheme here, and surely that's what's important. The coach of the Girafarig has been saying rude things about Superior in the Discord lately, so I suspect that one, Superior will not do especially well in this set, and two, you know, I don't tend to root for one team over the other unless it's just a chance to see something really cool happen. I don't tend to be taking sides between the other teams in the league in my commentary, but I mean, if there's a Superior hater in Pool B, then, well, we'll see how unbiased I can be. On the Fearows side, I don't know, they got a bunch of good Pokemon. I still can't remember out of their Salamence in Lucario what can Mega Evolve and what can't. It is Mega Salamence, right? I think. And not Mega Lucario. But I guess just paying less attention to Pool B than Pool A. I still don't have some of these Megas down. We're about halfway through the season. Surely I can figure it out. Anyway, Infernape leading with Gastrodon against Swampert and Politoed. Swampert Mega evolving immediately. Of course, will not benefit from the Swift Swim turn 1, so it protects, but it gets the Swift Swim online the next turn. Infernape just going for U-turn into Politoed doesn't do much, but pivots in the Salamence, which will intimidate the Swampert, importantly. Swampert avoids an Earth Power with that Protect, but Salamence... Yeah, Swampert getting intimidated is tricky for it, for sure. Salamence switches out to Ferrothorn on an Ice Punch. That does not do much damage. The Iron Barb's back did almost as much. And Swampert chipped down a bit by the Earth Power, but yeah, so far the Girafarig just went for it with the Rain Core, but the Fearows then able to intimidate Swampert and pivot Ferrothorn in, and showing why just going for it doesn't always work. Icy Wind from the Politoed, not a whole lot of damage on either side so far, which again I think probably favors the Fearows because the Girafarig are playing like they wanted to do big damage very quickly. But we get now Earthquake, it chips some stuff, Earth Power, it chips a thing, Scald, just boosts the Gastrodon. Maybe they forgot or read a switch. I don't know. But that knockoff does something kind of interesting actually, because it reveals that the Politoed had an Iron Ball. while removing that. Politoed does survive, but now we know this Politoed is slow. Intentionally slow for some reason, and intentionally heavy, although I can't think of a reason it would want to be heavy in this matchup, so maybe it just cares about being slow. Anyway. We get a helping hand here. Confirmation that the Girafarig forgot the Storm Drain, and so there was no big brain play behind the Scald. Helping hand from the Politoed. It's on its last legs anyway, so it'll get knocked out by its partner Swampert in return for extra damage into the two opponents. However, the -1 attack Swampert still not getting the job done. Gastrodon survives at approximately 1 HP. Ferrothorn a fair bit more than that. And Politoed being knocked out means, unless they have Rain Dance somewhere on the team, which they might well have, but unless they do, that Rain is not coming back when it ends pretty soon, actually. So an aggressive game plan that still doesn't seem to be paying off. Ferrothorn, though, going for a Gyro Ball into Swampert, still not showing a Grass-type attack. And the Gyro Ball, high power, of course, because Swampert is a lot faster than Ferrothorn, but resisted and not especially strong. Now we see the Superior come in. Hidden Power Fire into Ferrothorn, probably not the move because the Rain is still weakening it, but maybe they can set up for that if they have it. For now, it's Leaf Storm into Gastrodon. Gastrodon protects. This is pretty obvious Leaf Storm. Ferrothorn can Thunder Wave the Superior, so that's going to be a problem for that Pokemon, especially against Salamence. Salamence is dragged in by Swampert's Roar. Interesting tech there. Superior gets a +1 attack. I doubt that matters for its set, but more importantly, the Rain is over, and Swampert's intimidated again. Salamence just protecting here, avoiding an Ice Punch. As Gastrodon will take a Leaf Storm this time and get knocked out through its Rindo Berry, so Superior is showing just what a strong and awesome Pokemon it is there, taking out that Gastrodon. Now we get Incarnate coming in. Swampert protects. Superior fully paralyzed. Unfortunate. Probably went for a protect of its own there, seeing as it's paralyzed and it tried to move next after Swampert. Instead, knocked down to its Focus Sash by a Flare Blitz, and then fully paralyzed again the next turn, knocked out by another Flare Blitz. Gave all it had to take out the Gastrodon. Unable to stand up to the Infernape. Swampert surviving a Salamence Dragon Claw at approximately 1 HP. But the -2 Ice Punch back, not doing a whole lot. Latios now here for the Girafarig, as rude words stated in the chat by their coach. Ferrothorn taking a Latios Psychic. Swampert finally knocked out by Infernape, but Latios actually taking out the Ferrothorn. So can Latios win this? The problem is the Infernape has U-turn, right? Although Infernape not going for U-turn here, just going for a Flare Blitz that crits and does like half. Probably choice Infernape. Can Latios win this? I think it takes a non-crit Flare Blitz, right? Knocks out Salamence with a Psychic here. Yeah, Latios should win. Alright, I thought the Fearows had that one when they successfully slowed down the Swampert mode, and especially when Superior was done a cruel injustice, being fully paralyzed twice and knocked out through its Focus Sash by the Infernape. But I guess the tricky thing with the slower, sort of bulkier gameplay on the Fearows brought is that even when they shut down the initial offensive pressure, it still folded under the offensive pressure that came in later, as Latios just kind of quietly showed up in a late game that I thought was probably going to go the Fearows' way and just knocked out most of their team. I think Latios got 3 out of 4 KOs, right? And it didn't even hit the field until the late game, so there you go. The offensive threats from the Girafarig showing their power, and let's see if they can do it again here in Game 2. Mismagius leads for the Fearows with Lucario against Vivillon and Metagross, as the Girafarig coach, despite the Game 1 win, continuing to use some offensive language in the chat there. But what can you do? It's high stakes competition. Things get heated sometimes. Lucario will Mega Evolve from the Fearows. Perhaps it's Mega Lucario and not Mega Salamence. Hard to say. But it'll Mega Evolve here. So will Metagross. Lucario will protect, and so will Metagross. Sleep Powder into the Mismagius. So Mismagius unable to do anything. Switches out to Salamence, which will intimidate the Mega Metagross now that doesn't have clear body anymore. But now Sleep Powder goes into Mega Lucario. Vivillon just putting everything to sleep. Metagross able to go for Earthquake. It won't hit Vivillon, but it also won't hit Salamence. And again, by Mega Evolving, Metagross has allowed itself to be intimidated. The Earthquake still does about half to Lucario, not bad. But Vivillon just outspeeding everything. Okay, there's no way the base speed that Showdown is showing me right now is correct. I think Vivillon forms probably just mess up its knowledge of what Pokemon this is. Vivillon is like the slowest Pokemon in the world, according to what hovering over it just showed me. But I don't think it should be outspeeding these unless it's Scarf Sleep Powder, so that's a fun tech if it is. And it's really paying off here. That said, Lucario has woken up here, but Metagross survives a close combat, but it takes the knockout on Salamence with Ice Punch, and that means not KOing Lucario with another Earthquake. But we know Vivillon's outspeeding everything. It could just put Lucario back to sleep, potentially. Gastrodon here, though, able to threaten Metagross. Lucario going for Bullet Punch, looking for that priority damage into Vivillon before potentially taking another nap. It is Sleep Powder into Lucario. Metagross not caring about being intimidated, gets the KO with Earthquake anyway. Doesn't do much to Gastrodon, though, and gets knocked out back by an Earth Power. But, I mean, if it's Superior in the back, right, the Fearows are down to their last two Pokemon, and Mismagius is asleep. If it's just Superior in the back to just absolutely wipe out that Gastrodon through its Rindo Berry with the almighty power of an overwhelming Leaf Storm of Justice, well, we don't get to find out because the Fearows forfeit. Obviously, not supposed to do that in Draft League for stat keeping purposes, but I can understand they were just so scared of Superior that they couldn't handle playing this out. And so, despite making some statements that I don't condone, the Glasgow Girafarig do take a solid 2-0 here, showing the power of an offensive team that puts out so much pressure that even when some of it is stalled early on in the game, the rest is still able to break through. Metagross, Latios, Swampert, and Superior all contributing to this win here. Just a solid showcase of this team's power all around. Next in Pool B, we have the Ontario Oguris on a Showdown account I don't recognize, but this is definitely them, taking on Genie Incarnate. That's right. This is the showdown of the last two undefeated teams in Pool B. So, arguably the highlight match of the whole week, but we'll see if it lives up to that billing. The Oguris have brought their triple Unova Legends, Landorus, Thundurus, and Tornadus with the Mega Gardevoir. I have finally puzzled out over the last couple weeks the synergy of that core. Mega Gardevoir, giant offensive threat in Tornadus' Tailwind, able to blast things with the Fairy type Hyper Voice, and of course, every type that resists Fairy is weak to ground. So Landorus, a strong offensive partner, especially since it can click Earthquake next to Tornadus or Thundurus. Both are flying types, both are immune, and it can even click it next to Gardevoir if Gardevoir is not Mega Evolved yet, because Gardevoir can have Telepathy and be immune to partner damage with that. And then Thundurus also just is strong. They've also brought Jellicent and Bisharp. Bisharp makes a lot of sense to me to cover the Gengar, and to an extent the Bronzong, actually, because Bronzong is a Steel type with Levitate, so it resists Fairy and is not weak to Earthquake, as long as it is Levitating. So yeah, Bisharp makes a lot of sense to me to cover some of those specific threats from Genie Incarnate. And then the Jellicent, it's bulky, it can kind of ruin Camerupt Stay. It's another threat into Mega Gengar and Bronzong. But yeah, we'll see how these complementary pieces fit in with the main core. I feel like we've seen Bisharp so often this season that it might be part of the main core as well. But anyway, let's jump in. Last two undefeated teams in Pool B. After this, there will only be one team left undefeated in each pool, the East Coast Espurr, and one of these two. Landorus and Gardevoir leading together, showing that offensive synergy immediately against Bronzong and Tangrowth. I guess I should say Genie Incarnate brought... Well, it's not that slow a team. It has a clear Trick Room mode, but then you also have the Tailwind Noivern option with the fast Mega Gengar, and Crocodile could go crazy in Tailwind, especially next to ground immunity like Noivern or Bronzong. So trying to overwhelm a Trick Room mode with offensive power makes sense. Trickier into like Noivern stuff, but we do in fact see Bronzong and Tangrowth from Genie Incarnate here. Gardevoir will Mega Evolve immediately. As Landorus just U-turns out of there against the Tangrowth, doing some good damage. We see Bisharp come in. We see Hyper Voice knock out the Tangrowth, not do much to the Bronzong. Bronzong free to click Heavy Slam into Gardevoir. Bronzong gets Heavy Metal, so this one doesn't necessarily have Levitate. I would think it probably does because Landorus is so threatening, but Heavy Metal to boost the Heavy Slam damage was an option. I don't know my Heavy Slam Bronzong calcs at all, so I have no idea whether it has that here, but Does more than half to Gardevoir with that Heavy Slam, however it needed, whatever tech it needed to do that. We see the Mega Gengar come in here, and it does Mega Evolve immediately. One would think it's vulnerable to a Bisharp Sucker Punch. But no Sucker Punch comes out, but Gengar misses a Focus Blast into Bisharp, so it gets a solid chance to take out one of its greatest threats there, but misses the attack and gets knocked out by a Psychic in return, as Bisharp just goes for knockoff into Bronzong, knocking that out as well. So, okay, I guess the Oguris may be still afraid of a Trick Room or a Heavy Slam KOing the Gardevoir. More likely, I think, afraid of a Trick Room or like a Hypnosis. So both sides assuming that I guess that the Bisharp has to target the Bronzong there, and it does. Just, well, the Bronzong could have, or the Bisharp could have a Chople Berry. We don't get to find out here, but just bad luck that Gengar misses the Focus Blast, and so that pays off perfectly for the Oguris. And then we see actually Crocodile's the last Pokemon. I thought it might be Mega Camerupt the way they played this. But it is Crocodile for Genie Incarnate, so it'll get intimidated by the Landorus. Gardevoir just protecting, playing it safe here. Knock off into Landorus, reveals an Assault Vest. That's good information for the rest of the set. Also, Landorus looking very strong into Mega Gengar and Mega Camerupt. With the Assault Vest, both of those primarily special attackers, although Camerupt could go physical. Of course, they are the two Megas on the other sides, the two great offensive threats. And both weak to ground. Gengar only weak to ground after it Mega Evolves. It does still have Levitate in this generation, but it doesn't have Levitate after it Mega Evolves. So Landorus with the Assault Vest looking like a giant threat into both Megas on the other side, as well as being able to offensively threaten Tangrowth and intimidate Crocodile. And I think it's very good information for Genie Incarnate finding out its item there. We'll see what they do with that information. We got the Bisharp coming in here. We got Miguel U-turning out against the Crocodile. Gardevoir's back. There's the Sucker Punch from Bisharp. Crocodile survives at approximately 1 HP, but then Gardevoir goes next and knocks it out with a Hyper Voice. So, solid win from the Ontario Oguris here. Bisharp dodging a Focus Blast is lucky. It's possible it has a Chople Berry, but so it might have been okay anyway, but a little bit of good fortune there. And at the very least, Genie Incarnate not getting some information that they maybe could have gotten, whether the Bisharp has that item or not. But they did get good information on the Landorus, and we'll see what adjustments they come up with now in Game 2. Landorus leads with Gardevoir once again, this time against Bronzong and Tank. Okay, it's the same leads, actually. Intimidate comes out. We see Bisharp switching in immediately. We see Miguel U-turning out again. So this is different. Last time Gardevoir Mega Evolved, and they doubled into Tangrowth and knocked that out turn 1. This time Tangrowth is still here. Not very much damage coming out from the Oguris turn 1. We see a Power Whip into Bisharp. It misses. Bisharp's just dodging everything, but Bronzong does set the Trick Room this time. Not going for the Heavy Slam. Bronzong switches out to Camerupt as we see Rage Powder from the Tangrowth. Redirects a knockoff from Bisharp. We see a Ganlon Berry on the Tangrowth, which I think is one of the ones like a Figgy Berry or Iapapa Berry. I think it's part of that set. So Pinch Berry for really low HP. Tangrowth won't get to use it here. As Tornadus goes for Skydrop into Camerupt, and again, Skydrop is a move that was not at all on my radar during the draft. It's kind of unfortunate that I missed out on it, considering the success other people are having with it. I had sort of forgotten this part of the move, but yeah, there's a weight limit, so Camerupt is too heavy to be lifted, unaffected by the Skydrop. It again makes me wonder whether it's Heavy Metal Bronzong, although I think Levitate makes a lot more sense. I don't know, that's my take, but yeah, for once we see Skydrop fail. A move that I've had to relearn the mechanics of gradually because, again, didn't think about it for a single second while we were drafting our teams. Camerupt will Mega Evolve here. Take a Sucker Punch. That'll significantly weaken a possible Eruption. So will the Rain Dance from Tornadus. Lots of good damage mitigation into Mega Camerupt from the Oguris. It is Eruption. It crits Bisharp. It almost KOs anyway, but doesn't. Doesn't do much to Tornadus, but then Tangrowth Brick Break will knock out the Bisharp and confirm that it doesn't have a Chople Berry. So that Focus Blast miss in Game 1, really unfortunate for Genie Incarnate. Now Miguel is back. Tangrowth will switch out to Bronzong. Camerupt protecting here. So Earthquake will hit nothing as Levitate is confirmed on the Bronzong. Like I said, I thought that made more sense than Heavy Metal, but I did wonder a little bit when I saw Heavy Slam. So it takes nothing from the Earthquake, but it does get confused by Hurricane, okay. And then immediately it hurts itself. Camerupt's now going for Heat Wave because its Eruption has been weakened. Misses Tornadus, crits Landorus, but not for very much through the Rain and the Assault Vest. Another Earthquake will only damage Mega Camerupt, but will knock it out. And now it's Skydrop into Bronzong. Bronzong has Levitate, which I'm guessing, like being a flying type, means that it doesn't take damage from this, but it is at least removed from the field for a turn. Although Trick Room ending, I think Bronzong is going to be dropped immediately, right? So they don't actually prevent any move from it. And I don't think this does any damage. Anyway, Crocodile's here. Misses a knockoff. Crocodile moves first here. Interesting. Misses a knockoff into Tornadus because Tornadus is up in the sky. And then Skydrop, okay, I'm wrong. It damages Bronzong. Flying types are immune, but Levitate Pokemon aren't. Wouldn't have guessed that. Alright. What a weird move that I've had to relearn the interactions of. And I know some of the PDLers are watching these to get a refresher on Skydrop, but I'm getting a refresher just from watching the replays. Alright, for some reason Bronzong takes damage from that. Miguel does a bunch of damage to the Crocodile with U-turn. We see the Gardevoir come in here and heavy slam into Tornadus. And the Gardevoir will Mega Evolve. Are Crocodile and Tornadus speed tying? That's interesting. Crocodile went first last turn and missed his Skydrop into Tornadus. Which suggests to me that they didn't expect Crocodile. They expected Crocodile to be slower than Tornadus, which makes sense. It has the lower base speed. So it's a slow Tornadus. But they appear to be speed tying because Tornadus went first this time. Iron Tail to Mega Gardevoir. Connects. One-shots. Moxie boost on the Crocodile. Miguel is back to take that boost away. Crocodile goes for Iron Tail into Miguel. There's no way it's Scarf Crocodile, right? Because it's speed tying the Tornadus and I think didn't expect to be faster, so maybe it's Banded Crocodile. If it's going for Iron Head into Miguel. But the double up into Bronzong, the knockoff will knock it out and reveal a Mental Herb, and now Tangrowth is here for Genie Incarnate. Okay, it's not choiced Crocodile. Crocodile confirmed, not banded. Switching to knockoff here, taking out Tornadus. Getting a Moxie boost again. Drop into a U-turn, but what does Tangrowth do now? It's power up into Miguel, it misses. It's chipped by a U-turn, but finally lands a Power Whip and makes up for those misses earlier with a crit that takes the Landorus out. So, 2 games into the set is tied. Pretty solid win for the Oguris in Game 1. A closer win for Genie Incarnate in Game 2. But a lot of misses and critical hits. And Skydrop weirdness. And what appears to be a speed tie, unless I'm missing something, but I think it must be. Across those first 2 games. And it really feels to me like anything can happen in Game 3. Once again, one of these teams will take its first loss of the season. That's the one thing that's guaranteed to happen in Game 3. Miguel and Tornadus against Gengar and Noivern. The Noivern's here now. It frisks these 2. We knew about the Assault Vest already, but now we see Sharp Beak on the Tornadus. Intimidate's not going to matter here. Tailwind immediately from the Tornadus. Gengar not Mega Evolving, so it has Levitate. So 2 ground immunities here. Super Fang immediately into Miguel. Gengar just going for Substitute, but it's Rock Slide, makes sense. You're not going to Earthquake into 2 ground immunities probably. So it breaks the Substitute. It had a chance to miss and leave the Substitute intact, but that doesn't happen here. Also doesn't do that all that much to the Noivern, huh? Gengar switching out now to Crocodile. That can take Rock Slide pretty nicely. But we also see Skydrop into the Noivern, which I think will not take damage from it, but will be removed from the field for now. But who knows about Skydrop at this point? But yeah, Crocodile comes in. It resists the Rock Slide, but Miguel actually just going ahead and clicking the Earthquake this time. Not afraid of the Levitate Gengar. This is more than half to Crocodile. Not bad. Crocodile protects. Skydrop does no damage to Noivern. Earthquake does no damage to anything because Crocodile protected. You see Tailwind on the other side now. If they have a way to take out the Tornadus, that's a pretty big advantage, but Noivern will miss a Heat Wave into Tornadus, not do much to Thunderous. And Tornadus will knock Crocodile out with a Hurricane. So only Genie Incarnate has Tailwind up now, but of course Tornadus can set it right back up. But Gengar should be fast. Gengar and Noivern should both be faster than Thunderous. A Heat Wave didn't do much to Thunderous. Well, let's see. Got the legendary trio from the Oguris here. Oh yeah, Super Fang does a lot to Thunderous. And then Shadow Ball KOs. So they get the Tailwind back up, but no damage from it. But Jellicent's here now. It takes a ton from a Shadow Ball immediately. Super Fang does half to Tornadus. It always does half. But Hurricane takes out the Gengar. The Ogre is just absolutely fearless, clicking these Hurricanes with no rain. And so far, paying off for them. They're connecting. Noivern gets chipped by a Scald. If they can land a Hurricane into Noivern before it can set another Tailwind, that'll be pretty advantageous for them. Although with Tangrowth shown to be the last Pokemon for Genie Incarnate, their Tailwind is not as important to them anymore anyway. Tangrowth not going to benefit that much from it. Noivern protects here. Does avoid a Hurricane. And a Scald. So Tangrowth will get a free chance to do something here. It's Natural Gift into Tornadus. Okay, I think I know this one. Natural Gift. It's an attack. I think it's physical. The type depends on what berry the Pokemon is holding. I think the power might also as well, but I'm not certain about that. We saw that Tangrowth was holding a Ganlon berry, and I thought that was kind of an odd choice, because you don't usually see that group of berries in Gen 6. But it looks like it gives it a super effective natural gift to take out the Tornadus, so there's our answer to that. The Oguris only have one turn of Tailwind left. Again, I mean, Miguel should have the speed advantage over Tangrowth always, but not over Noivern, so we'll see how that plays out for them from here. We do see the Intimidate, though. We see a Rock Slide. Noivern survives at approximately 1 HP. Does it set another Tailwind? No, it just goes for Heat Wave. It doesn't do very much damage to anything. This is a bulky water type, and this has an Assault Vest. Scald into Tangrowth, also not doing very much. No burn. Tangrowth flinched by the Rock Slide, though. That's potentially a huge flinch. But with Tailwind over on both sides, Noivern will move next. Heat Wave does not get a KO. Jellicent survives on approximately 1 HP. Noivern Heat Wave just not strong enough here. Miguel will knock the Noivern out with a Rock Slide. Tangrowth will flinch again. Unreal. Get chipped by a Scald and knocked out by a U-turn. And the legendary trio for the Ontario Oguris deliver the win. That was quite a set. Just the spectacle you want from the last two undefeated teams in their pool. And if they meet in playoffs, anything could happen, because there was a lot of luck throughout this one, if we're being honest. Misses, crits, and now also Rock Slide flinches. And even so, they played some close games along the way here. So, hey, this could be a preview of a playoff matchup. Maybe not with the pools being combined in the playoffs, but if we get a rematch between these two, anything could happen. I'm very confident of that after what I just saw here. And I don't know how much else there is to say. I think it might be time to just move on to Pendragon United taking on the Toronto Tynamos. The Tynamos with the Sun Mega Duo that I like so much, able to use Mega Charizard Y to set up the Sun for Chlorophyll Venusaur, or if they find it more advantageous, Mega Evolve the Venusaur for tanky, thick Fatmon. They've got the Latias. They've got possible Trick Room stuff with Cofagrigus and Sylveon. They got Cleffa. I feel like I looked this up. I think Cleffa does not get Follow Me in later gens, but I think it does in this gen. And it doesn't in Gen 9. I remember I watched a draft league where somebody drafted it thinking it did, and it didn't. But I think it actually does in this game. You're in Gen 6. On the Pendragon United side, I don't know, Mamoswine looks really strong here. Togekiss looks... it can redirect stuff. It can threaten Latias. That's pretty good. Yeah, Mamoswine looks really strong here. And Aegislash, if you can protect it from the Charizard, which may be Pokemon like Togekiss and Entei and Salamence. Oh, it's Mega Salamence on this team, isn't it? I still get my Pool B mixed up. They have a bunch of stuff that can help protect Aegislash from the Charizard, so that could be a strong win con for them. Almost forgot what I was saying there. I gotta get through these and get to bed. Okay. Entei leads with Raichu against Charizard and Venusaur. So immediately we've got that
the option there for Tynamos. My guess here, I mean, actually, my honest guess here is they switch something out because Entei just puts out so much pressure into these two immediately. I could see the Mega Evolving Charizard and protecting Venusaur to get the Chlorophyll next turn, but Entei could just like Stone Edge Charizard. But I guess you could protect both, and then you get out of the fake out pressure. So yeah, Mega Evolving Charizard here is plausible. But then they still have to do something to Entei, and Sleep Powder is not the most convincing thing. So I could see them making a switch, but I'm guessing they don't Mega Evolve Venusaur here, even though Thick Fat would be helpful into Entei, is what I'm getting at. Well, let's see. Charizard Mega Evolves. Protect. Venusaur protects. Okay, yeah, so that was one of the things I called out that they could do, and it is that one. Entei goes straight for Eruption. And Raichu goes for Nuzzle. Of course, neither of those will work out for them here. But Venusaur misses a Sleep Powder into Entei. It was set up the Chlorophyll and then Sleep Powder Entei, and this was the problem with that plan. 75% accuracy, a little bit more if they have a wide lens. It misses. Entei gets to go for an Eruption. Moving before Charizard. Same base speed. Okay, well, I don't know. Could be Scarfed, could easily not be. Either way, just one-shots the Venusaur. And then Raichu gets to Nuzzle the Charizard, doing some damage and paralyzing it. Rough start for the Tynamos. I mean, I understand the play. I called it out as one of their options. Hard for me to identify their switching options because I don't know what they have in the back, but... And of course, most of the time they do put the Entei to sleep there. Unless it has safety goggles or a Lumberry or something. But... we're in the minority of the time where that doesn't work out. Anyway, Latias is here. Entei will switch out for Salamence. Raichu will Electro Web, missing Charizard, but getting the speed drop on Latias, as Latias sets Tailwind, so that'll offset the speed drop nicely. Charizard going for Heat Wave, misses Salamence, knocks Raichu down to a Focus Sash. Salamence now can Mega Evolve and Protect, avoiding a Dragon Pulse from Latias. As Raichu showing the Endeavor. We saw the power of Endeavor Raichu from the Yosemite Jolteons last week. This week, Pendragon United. Focus Sash Raichu. Knocked down to the Sash. Outspeeding the paralyzed Charizard despite the Tailwind on the other side. Immediately taking that Latias down to 1 HP. And then I think it just dodged another... Yeah, it just dodged a Heat Wave. Unbelievable stuff. Okay. Latias showing leftovers though, so not quite at 1 HP anymore. As Raichu switches out to Entei. Latias not going for the Dragon Pulse into Salamence. This time instead goes for a Mist Ball that chips Entei. I mean, it'll weaken the Eruption, but Salamence just goes straight for Rock Slide. Could have had to worry about the Dragon Pulse, but not what happened here, as Rock Slide takes out Charizard and Latias. I can't remember what the reason is to run Mist Ball over Psychic. What is its secondary effect? I think it's a special attack drop. So... yeah, maybe into some of these Pokemon that's reasonable, and it's not that much weaker than Psychic, I don't think. I'm not 100% sure it is weaker, but I think it probably is. But yeah, maybe they want the secondary effect. Either way, though, Salamence takes 2 KOs here, and the Tynamos are down to just Sylveon already. One turn of Tailwind left. It'll get to go first here. Hyper Voice, knock out Salamence, crit Entei, but Entei survives. Life Orb on the Sylveon. We see Snarl from Entei, but hopefully they have a better way to damage it than that. But the Tailwind will end here. Raichu comes in on 1 HP, threatening Fake Out. Sylveon will protect around that. Entei shows another Snarl. Well, Pendragon United still have an unrevealed Pokemon, so I hope they're just softening up the Sylveon for something else to knock it out, and this isn't their whole plan. But Sylveon down to -2 special attack now. Oh, and Endeavor down to 1 HP, so okay, yeah, that'll do it. This actually is a fine plan thanks to Raichu being faster than Sylveon. Sylveon takes Raichu out with a Hyper Voice, doesn't get the KO on the Fire-type Entei, and drops to its Life Orb. So yeah, Endeavor Raichu actually proving once again to be a pretty solid plan, just like last week in Pool A. Solid Game 1 win for Pendragon United. Of course, the Sleep Powder miss playing a pretty significant role as Entei was able to just wipe out the Venusaur, and the speed control game got trickier for the Tynamos from there, thanks to the Raichu spreading Paralysis and Electro Web, and then just almost KOing things with Endeavor. So we'll see if the Tynamos have a different game plan in Game 2. Let's jump right in. It's Salamence and Entei against Cofagrigus and Charizard, so it could be Trick Room stuff this time from the Tynamos. That would make sense. Salamence Mega Evolving immediately. Charizard not. Avoiding an Eruption. Okay, so Charizard Mega Evolving here would give the Sun Boost to Entei's Eruption, so that's probably why they didn't... or maybe they If it's a Trick Room game plan, maybe they want to Mega Evolve the Venusaur this game. But not boosting Entei's Eruption is also a pretty smart reason, if that's what they were thinking. As Cofagrigus takes about half, gets some recovery from its Citrus Berry. Survives a double edge at approximately 1 HP. So actually Charizard not Mega Evolving made the difference here. Cofagrigus will get a chance to do something thanks to that decision. And what it does is set Trick Room. Entei now switches out for Togekiss. We see Charizard Mega Evolve. Salamence protects, avoiding a Will-O-Wisp from Cofagrigus. And it's just Air Slash into the Entei slot, which does some chip to Togekiss, but hopefully they're going to be looking for more damage than that. Togekiss will get to click Follow Me here. Of course, that can't redirect a Heat Wave, but Salamence should be able to take that. It's Ally Switch from Cofagrigus and Hidden Power from Charizard. Super effective into Togekiss. I'm guessing Hidden Power Ice to hit the Salamence. It hits the Togekiss pretty hard as well, but not hard enough to get the KO here. But thanks to the Ally Switch, if Salamence is trying to take out Charizard with that cover from the Follow Me, it'll hit Cofagrigus instead. But it just goes for Rock Slide, so that's a way to play around that. And I guess we did see in Game 1 that it had Rock Slide, so perhaps I should have seen that coming. Especially with Cofagrigus being so low. That does just take 2 KOs. The Ally Switch ends up not mattering here. If they had a way to take the KO on Togekiss, that might have been more helpful, but I don't know. I understand the play. But yeah, they did have... Pendragon United did have that answer there with the Rock Slide. And Hidden Power Ice now revealed on Charizard. If there's a Game 3, that'll be good for them to know. We see Latios and Sylveon come in here. Sylveon's happy about the Trick Room. Latios a little bit less so, but... Anyway, just protects from Pendragon United. That gets them the last turn of Trick Room. They switch the Salamence out for Raichu, so now Salamence can come back in when it gets to be fast again. Sylveon Hyper Voice knocks out Togekiss and does a lot to Raichu. Hopefully, for the Tynamos' sake, Latios will KO Raichu here, or else we might see some more Endeavor stuff. Latios sets Tailwind. Okay, that's actually good though. That's also that's better for them than KOing Raichu here, because they need to not just lose to Salamence when it comes back in. So actually the Tailwind was correct there. Entei's here though. No Salamence yet. Yeah, and seamlessly transitioning from the Trick Room to the Tailwind, making sure they have the speed advantage either way. Good stuff from the Tynamos. Latios will protect here, avoiding the Fake Out. The Fake Out goes into Sylveon instead. It flinches. Entei has a free, I was going to say Eruption, but actually it goes for Snarl. That makes more sense. Eruption is badly nerfed if it takes a lot of damage from Latios here. So yeah, Snarl safer. It'll weaken both of these. Not Latios because it protects, but if Latios didn't protect, it would be weakened by the Snarl. Sylveon will be weakened by it. Dragon Pulse chips the Entei, doesn't do a whole lot. Hyper Voice takes out the Raichu, so no Endeavor this game, but again, Entei being reasonably tanky and also resisting Fairy means it can take a couple of hits here. It can Snarl again. This time it does get the drops on both opponents, so Latios at -1, Sylveon at -2, neither one able to switch out. Mega Salamence here, 1 turn of Tailwind left. The Tailwind turns have been disappearing pretty quickly on me. Salamence can just protect through this. And Entei taking a -1 Dragon Pulse. Does it also take the -2 Shadow Ball? I was going to say Hyper Voice, but it's not Hyper Voice. Sylveon going for the unresisted attack. And it pays off as at -2. It does still get the KO on the Entei. But now it's these two versus Salamence. We know Salamence is spread damage, but it's not especially strong, so I could see a double edge into something, but no. They're playing the flinch game. Yeah, going for the Rock Slide flinch makes more sense, because I think you do just have to hit both of these at this point. Either one of them is a giant threat to Salamence. Latios protects here. They do get the flinch on Sylveon, so some good luck there for Pendragon United. Now Sylveon will protect. Latios will get chipped by Rock Slide, and it doesn't flinch. It gets the Tailwind back up, and I don't think Mega Salamence will be able to keep up now. Salamence protecting to get the return of Tailwind. Probably just has to go for the triple protect to try to get through this, and then still needs some Rock Slide luck or some incredible reads to win this game. So although they sold out the first Tailwind and got the Salamence in safely, still a rough position for Pendragon United. They don't go for the triple protect. Salamence takes a Dragon Pulse, but not a Hyper Voice. I guess triple protect was their only out, but instead of going for that, they go for Game 3. Great speed control game there from the Tynamos. Again, not getting a huge amount done in the Trick Room thanks to the Rock Slide Salamence, but then just seamlessly pivoting to Tailwind and overwhelming the Salamence once that was done, and getting a second Tailwind up was pretty good work as well, with the Sylveon and Latias both threatening the Salamence so much that it couldn't cleanly focus on one of them with its flying stab. But let's see what they have in Game 3. Salamence leading with Entei. Lots of offensive pressure from Pendragon United against Charizard and Latias on the other side. So third unique lead for the Tynamos. Let's see what they're cooking with this. Salamence will Mega Evolve. Charizard will Protect. I guess the nice thing is Latias, we've seen that the Tailwind is very valuable. The Snarl Entei makes it tricky, but the Tailwind can be very valuable to avoid being pressured too much by the Salamence. And Latias resists Eruption. So if Entei went for Eruption here, it wouldn't do a whole lot, especially with Charizard once again not gifting it the Sun. The problem is Entei can go for Snarl, and Latias is pretty significantly weakened by that in its special attack stat, if not its HP, but yeah, I mean, they found something that is less afraid of an Eruption double-edge double-up, probably, than Cofagrigus is. Latias doesn't take much damage, does take the special attack drop, goes for Tailwind here, and it is double-edge into Latias. It actually KOs. Alright. So I guess it is more afraid of that well, yeah. More afraid of the double-up than Cofagrigus, but let's see. Latias maxes out at 178 speed. Mega Salamence is faster than Latias, but regular Salamence is not. So Latias is knocked out by the double edge, but it's able to get the Tailwind up turn 1 because Mega Salamence can never access its Mega Evolved speed stat turn 1, right? This Generation 6, it takes a turn for the new speed stat to kick in. So yeah, with Entei not able to wipe it out with Eruption and Salamence being guaranteed slower on at least the first turn of the game, Latias sacrifices itself for the Tailwind there. That means there won't be a second Tailwind, so it's an aggressive lead in that sense. We'll see how they capitalize on it. And unsurprisingly, it involves Sylveon. Salamence will switch out here. Charizard will Mega Evolve. I mean, the Fire and Fairy type damage looks very threatening, right? Because this Heat Wave would probably do a lot to Togekiss. The Hyper Voice would wipe out Salamence. The only problem I see is Entei resists both. And we saw a Hidden Power Ice on the Charizard, right? So it doesn't have that to cover for Entei either. At least I assume it was Ice. It could have been Rock, in which case it would help with Entei, but I don't think it was. I think it was Ice for the Salamence. But yeah, the Entei seems like the one significant problem here. Although Snarl might be too slow depending on how this plays out. But it could significantly weaken these, and they don't seem to have great damage into it, but otherwise it's a lot of pressure. Let's see. Big damage into Togekiss, small damage into Entei. Shadow Ball does some more damage into Entei, but yeah, it's less than they'd like, even with that attack. I mean, it's medium power, non-stab. They get a Snarl into both of these, and the Tailwind turn's ticking down already. Togekiss takes an Air Slash now, but is knocked out by a Hyper Voice, but Entei surviving. Gets a chance to go for Snarl. I think we're way past worrying about Stone Edge Entei, but these are both at -2 now, and they only have one turn of Tailwind left. Their opponent can protect through it anyway, so trading Latias for 1 KO under Tailwind, and close to a second one. Maybe Entei doesn't protect here, but we'll see if that pays off for them. Entei doesn't protect. Salamence, though, avoiding the Hidden Power Ice and the, I assume it's Ice, and the Hyper Voice. Entei will get knocked out by the Hyper Voice, actually. So Latias traded itself for 2 KOs. That's better than 1. But now it's Aegislash on the other side. I mean, that's pretty vulnerable to Charizard, even at -2, but we'll see. It's Wide Guard to stop a Heat Wave. Venusaur switched in for Sylveon, takes a Rock Slide reasonably well, but Salamence is now faster than anything. Is perhaps the bigger problem for the Tynamos. They get a Sleep Powder into Aegislash, that's good, but they lose their Venusaur for that. Aegislash transforms as it tries to attack. That's a good interaction to know, even though it's asleep, it still transforms. Now Charizard is here with Sylveon, and we're in a sort of a similar position where they both threaten the Salamence. But Rock Slide will take out Charizard. I think if you're Pendragon United, so here's what I'm thinking. Rock Slide will KO Charizard, but not Sylveon, but it could flinch Sylveon. So maybe if you're the Tynamos, you protect Charizard and you go for the Hyper Voice KO into Salamence. I think Aegislash also has a chance to wake up here, but in which case it would stop the Hyper Voice with Wide Guard, but let's suppose that's not going to happen. Go for the Hyper Voice KO into Salamence. The problem with that is they could flinch Sylveon, but that's a roll in your favor. But if you're Pendragon United, maybe you read that they're going to do that and you double edge the Sylveon. I don't know if it KOs, but I know, I'm sure it does more than Rock Slide. Actually, they have to know here whether it KOs, because it's probably not worth it if it doesn't. Because Aegislash just gets cooked by Charizard. So you need the Salamence to win this game, I think. I think if you're the Tynamos, you probably... But if you think you might lose Sylveon to a double edge, if that's possible here, then maybe Charizard is better off not protecting and going for Hidden Power Ice into Salamence. And then if they Rock Slide, you lose Charizard, and so you lose the game. Because I don't... Well, maybe Sylveon can beat Aegislash with Shadow Ball. Actually, yeah, Sylveon has Shadow Ball, and Aegislash is asleep. I'm guessing if it clicks King's Shield, it'll transform even if it stays asleep, because it just transformed while asleep. So I wouldn't bet the Sylveon beats Aegislash even with Shadow Ball. I feel like I'd much rather have the Charizard. So I think, if I'm the Tynamos here, I'm very tempted to protect Charizard and Hyper Voice. And then maybe my opponent would read that, but let's see. And again, I don't know. I feel like if you click Double Edge, you need it to KO the Sylveon. So if you've run the calcs and you know it won't do that, then Rock Slide's probably better anyway. Let's see. Aegislash stays asleep, probably going for Wide Guard. It is Double Edge and a Sylveon. But the Charizard didn't protect. It went for Heat Wave. And it gets both KOs with that. Taking out Aegislash through an Aqua Berry. Wow. I'm glad I stopped to try to think through the position on that last turn. I don't know. It's always tough because I don't know their game plans. I'm not actually in their heads playing the game. I always feel like I'm going to miss something obvious, and I'm sure sometimes I do, but I understand the Double Edge into Sylveon because if I'm them, I think the Charizard is protecting, most likely. But this is the benefit then of not protecting Charizard in a position where your opponent's incentives look like that. Tough turn for both sides, but the Tynamos come out ahead here and take a solid win. Some really well-executed game plans there. And just a lot of offensive pressure from Sylveon and Mega Charizard Y. A lot of fun to see. Next up, we have Bois. We have Bois taking on the Salt Lake City Toxic. Bois' team looks very Trick Roomy to me, except that there's a Greninja. The Toxic brought Chansey Shuckle. Maybe with Simple Beam Linoon again. It'd be funny if we watch it miss their own Chansey a bunch of times. Follow Me, Riolu, Rage Powder, Tangela. I think we know what they're going to do here. Oh, and of course the Mega Sableye, maybe with Psych Up again. Well, let's find out. And let's find out what answers Bois have for that. Alright, Greninja and Arcanine against Chansey and Tangela. No Shuckle yet. It's Taunt on the Tangela. Interesting, not on the Chansey. And then Flare Blitz into Tangela just knocks it out. I wonder why you taunt Tangela there. Like, you can expect it to be redirected by a Rage Powder, but then you could just take your chances, click into Chansey, and see if that happens. And in fact, they didn't click Rage Powder, but I mean, maybe you don't know that the Flare Blitz is going to one-shot the Tangela. You don't want to mess with Sleep Powder or Rage Powder later, but I feel like taunting the Chansey is so valuable here. I don't know. Tangela's gone. What does Chansey do? Minimize. Go figure. Alright, now Shuckle's here. That's Haze Greninja. Okay, well, perhaps that's why they're not too bothered about taunting the Chansey. I understand that turn 1 play better now if they could just remove its evasiveness shenanigans. Of course, Greninja not especially bulky. Can't just click Haze forever, but there's no offensive threat to really mess with it right now. I mean, Shuckle could be running a Rock attack, and Greninja makes itself weak to Rock by turning into an Ice type when it uses Haze with Protean, but also, Greninja's still here, it can click Taunt into Chansey now. So yeah, getting rid of the Tangela makes a lot of sense, actually. They probably do just want to have that redirection or Sleep Powder threat out of there, so that they can continue to pressure these with more taunts and also Haze. We see Dazzling Gleam from Chansey, it doesn't do much damage to anything. We see the Guard Split, so Chansey will still be hard to knock out, but it's Roar into Shuckle now. Forcing that off the field. Roar into Chansey could be valuable to get rid of its effectively boosted defense stat. So Haze and Roar and Taunt all looking very strong into the Toxic here, as, by the way, they didn't bring the Whimsicott and Terrakion again, so they don't seem to have a more offensive mode to pivot to. So Bois seem like they have the tools to win this, but let's see what the Toxic have up their sleeve. The Sableye's here now. It taunts the Arcanine, so that'll stop another roar. It's just close combat from Arcanine. I cannot believe how little that did to Chansey. I know it's not, it's not stab, and Arcanine doesn't hit that hard by even Gen 6 standards, but I remind you, Chansey has one of the lowest base defense stats in the whole game. I think it's literally like 5. And this is the but then Shuckle has like, what, 230 base defense? Might even be 280. This is the power of averaging those out, and then also, I guess, having the Eviolite, and then Chansey having a ton of HP. That close combat just tickled it a little bit. And Arcanine's taunted, it can't roar. Chansey's going for the minimize now. Arcanine switching out to Greninja. Sableye Mega Evolves here, goes for Snarl. Scavalier's not too bothered about that. Greninja probably isn't either. I don't think Greninja's rolls to attack. We see another minimize. We see Iron Head into Sableye. Bois have a lot of support text to shut this down, but they are not showing a lot of damage so far. Actually, I mean, another Iron Head is helping to wear the Sableye down. It doesn't take a third one. It switches out here. We see Shuckle come in on a Flare Blitz. Chansey setting up with Calm Mind. Now it's got some minimizes. Escavalier setting up with Swords Dance. So all those ways to control the Chansey, and they still have allowed it to set up. But now Greninja switching in. It can just click Haze immediately. It does get rid of the partner's Swords Dance, but at this point it's probably worth it. But maybe they have something else up their sleeve. Oh, well, they get to use the Swords Dance before getting rid of it by knocking out Shuckle with an Iron Head. Taking advantage of that Steel weakness despite its high defenses, and now they can Haze. The attack boost has done its job already. It's not really important. Chansey loses his Calm Minds. Dazzling Gleam is very little. Iron Head takes out the Sableye, and now, oh yeah, they can taunt Chansey. It's stuck clicking Dazzling Gleam. That's probably the only attack it has. It did some more damage to Greninja now that it turned back into a Dark type, but Iron Head doing... Of course, Haze doesn't get rid of the guard split because it's not really a stat boost. It's just redistributing some stats. So Iron Head doing unbelievably little, but Chansey just shouldn't have any way to win this from here, I would think. Escavalier going for the Swords Dances. I wonder why you don't keep Greninja on the field. I feel like... Oh, well, because the damage from Dazzling Gleam adds up and it can't just sit there forever and then taunt Chansey again, that's why. The Escavalier with a Swords Dance, and then Arcanine clicking close combat. This is a better way to play it. Greninja can't just sit on the field. Oh, Soft Boiled. I was going to say, well, that should just win, but actually Chansey did have a way to get through this turn. But now Greninja's back. Chansey goes for Soft Boiled again. This could be a long one, but Escavalier is free to keep setting up. Chansey can get taunted before it can get any more boosts. There's no need to click Haze. Yeah, the Dazzling Gleam damage adds up. So I won't be surprised if Greninja switches out again, and it does. But Escavalier, now at +4 attack, finally doing something resembling respectable damage. And then it gets a crit, and that also is, of course, the thing that can always happen. So Chansey was able to stall that out somewhat soft-boiled, but it was still a massively favorable position for Bois. We saw the power of Guard Split Shuckle with Chansey. I mean, there's a reason this was like the toxic tech on ladder before Smeargle Muck was a thing. Maybe that's not true. Maybe people ran Smeargle Muck back in the day as well. I wasn't playing VGC back then, I don't know. But I started in Sword and Shield, and so Chansey Shuckle was the one that I was familiar with first. That Chansey's really hard to remove once it gets those boosts, but not an offensive threat. Needs to rely on those status moves and those boosts, and so Haze can't take away the Guard Split, but it can take away the rest. And although it took a little bit of time for Bois to stack up the damage, they positioned this really well. They got the attack boosts where they needed them, used the Escavalier to take out the other Pokemon, so Chansey was on its own. And again, with the taunt, the Haze, even the Roar option, though we didn't really see it do very much in this game. Locking this one down, and I don't know that the Toxic have another game plan for this, because again, they didn't bring the Whimsicott Terrakion stuff. They didn't seem to bring anything very offensive, unless it's Extreme Speed Linoon, if that's a thing in this generation. Why is this game 3? Wait, did I miss a game 2? Hang on. Let me just double check the Discord. I might have goofed here. Oh, there's a game 2 that I missed. Whoops. Bit of a programming error there. Alright. Glad I caught that from just the results here. So spoiler, this is going to go to a game 3. I don't know how the Toxic are going to bring this to a game 3, but let's find out. Honestly, knowing in advance and struggling to guess how is going to make it more fun, arguably. Greninja leading with Arcanine against Chansey and Tangela again. Is he taunted at Tangela? This is the same turn 1. Did I watch game 2 the first time? Hang on. Technical difficulties, folks. Okay, this is game 1. Sorry, I watched... Okay. We're watching this one out of order because I messed up somehow. This is game 1. We know that the Toxic will win this. It remains to be seen how, but with Togetic and Hariyama leading for Bois, that's not Greninja and Arcanine, so I think they might have brought a worse Chansey Shuckle game plan to this one. Ugh, I'm a mess right now. Okay, here we go. Togetic and Hariyama against Linoon and Tangela. Okay, maybe we'll get some insight here on why they targeted the Tangela so heavily in game 2. Fake out into Linoon, follow me, sleep powder. Okay, Togetic takes a nap. Hariyama's burned, so it cannot take a nap. We get rage powder though. It is belly drum Linoon. Okay, I'm starting to see. Heavy slam, a lot of damage to Tangela, but not a KO. Togetic stays asleep. Extreme speed knocks out Hariyama. Get the rage powder again, redirecting nothing. We get Arcanine. Intimidate takes Linoon down to a measly -5 or +5. Excuse me. Still enough for extreme speed to one-shot Arcanine as Togetic taking a million sleep turns, unable to redirect anything. Now it narrowly survives in extreme speed, but a Scavalier takes a nap. Togetic wakes up. Dazzling Gleam doesn't do much to anything. Scavalier stuck sleeping. Protect on the Tangela. Extreme speed into Togetic. And then Rage Powder, Shadow Claw, +5 does a little bit more than half, but the attack's redirected. No Overcoat on this Escavalier. And then it gets taunted, and Shadow Claw takes it out. Okay, so that's game 1. And that does give me some more context on game 2. I understand now why they so aggressively targeted the Tangela, because it was a menace in game 1. The redirection was a real problem, and so was the Sleep Powder. And they needed to be able to deal with this Linoon. Linoon went crazy in game 1. Then we saw what happened in game 2. It looked like this. The Chansey Shuckle stuff didn't work at all. And if we want to see an offensive game plan from the Toxic, maybe it has to be the Linoon again. Let's find out. Greninja Hariyama this time. Okay, against Linoon and Riolu. Detect and Protect. On the fake out, Hariyama will get its burn now. Taunt into Riolu. Stopped. And Greninja turns into a dark type. Maybe Riolu has some way to mess with it now. We won't find... Well, Greninja was already a dark type. Never mind. Greninja switching out to Trevenant, so if there's a close combat or something, that won't do anything. Let's just follow me from Riolu and Belly Drum from Linoon. So it remains to be seen whether Bois has a better answer to this than they had in game 1. But for now, close combat knocks Riolu down to a Focus Sash. Okay. I mean, Trevenant seems like a better answer. Well, but it's weak to Shadow Claw, so we'll find out. Follow me. Redirecting a Feint. Well, probably not redirecting. They probably just clicked that into Riolu, but Feint knocks it out. Shadow Claw knocks out Trevenant with a crit that I wouldn't bet matters. Is Linoon just going to sweep again? We got Tangela. They brought Linoon with double Follow Me. So yeah, the Chansey Shuckle stuff didn't work at all, but the Belly Drum Linoon looking really hard to stop. Let's see if Greninja can do it. Hariyama switches out to a Scavalier. Extreme Speed knocks Greninja down to a Focus Sash. We haven't seen Tangela's move yet. Oh, it's Rage Powder now. It just has lower priority. But because of the Focus Sash, Greninja is able to use Haze to get rid of the Linoon's attack boost. And so now we see why leading with Greninja was important in game 2. And it was not specifically to shut down Chansey and Shuckle, although it was valuable toward that end as well. Alright, there go the boosts. Greninja's out of here for Hariyama. Extreme Speed, not going to do so much anymore. Does some chip. Sleep Powder missing his Cavalier. Bit of luck there for Bois as they're able to land an Iron Head. In theory, Linoon could have gone for another Belly Drum, although that gets it to really low HP, and then we're talking about maybe getting knocked out by Feint, right? So, probably not worth it. But no more shenanigans from Linoon, one way or the other, as it's knocked out here by an Iron Head. Chansey's here. It gets faked out this turn. There's no Shuckle, because these are the last 2 Pokemon. Scavalier will get a pretty free Sword Stance here, but it still has to worry about Sleep Powder. But the problem is, what damage do the Toxic have into a Scavalier? Tangled has shown Rage Powder, Sleep Powder. I think it's shown Protect. Maybe it could have Hidden Power Fire. I don't know if we've seen all 4 of its moves, but I feel like it probably doesn't have Hidden Power Fire. Close Combat takes out the Chansey. That's the power of Chansey without a guard split. Somewhat weaker, somewhat softer on the physical side. And now Tangled is all alone, and when its Cavalier wakes up, it's probably GG. Just going for Sleep Powder here. Can't even put anything to sleep. Might not have an attack the way it's playing. I would think certainly not Hidden Power Fire. Survives a Heavy Slam. The Rocky Helmet takes out Hariyama. Greninja comes in at 1 HP. Maybe Tangled has a way to beat that, but I don't think it has a way to beat this Cavalier. It gets taunted. It shows Leaf Storm. It takes out Greninja, so in the end this is only a 1-0 for Bois, but the Tangled definitely does not have a way to hit his Cavalier. Leaf Storm at -2 does practically nothing. This Cavalier goes for Infestation. Why do they have Infestation? Is it a way to get consistent damage on Chansey with residual damage? But the physical damage more valuable, it always is, and they showed that in game 2, so I think more likely it's a way to prevent something from switching out. Maybe they wanted Infestation to trap something on the field so the Toxic couldn't pivot around and rebuild an advantage. I don't know. I have no idea. That's the best I got. Bit of a weird set to take in because we watched this one out of order because I got all the way through game 2 before I noticed that it wasn't game 1. I think it's the first time I've done something like that. Usually I'm pretty thorough going through the replays and getting everything set up properly, but there we go. We got game 2 with no context, and then a game 1 that gave us a bunch of context. And then in game 3, Return of the Linoon, and how Bois finally defeated it. It's kind of like Star Wars, watching the story out of order. I like to say that my videos are like Star Wars, you know? Anyway, one more set. I just closed game 1 by accident. I'm a mess here. Maybe that's what happened last time. Accidentally closed 2 tabs there instead of 1. Okay, this is game 1, and it's the Snowpoint Snorunts versus the Elegancy. And I could talk about what's going to happen here. I could talk at preview about the fact that both of them have first stage arena trap Pokemon, able to trap any grounded targets and hit them with ground type damage, actually somewhat strong from the Trapinch, and of course very super effective into the Heatran from the Diglett. And honestly, trapping Heatran does seem like with Diglett does seem like the Snorunt's best answer to that Pokemon. I don't know, there could be some Trick Room stuff from the Elegancy, but then the Starmie's always kind of an odd fit with that. Notably, the Pokemon that they can't trap are Thundurus and Azelf. I don't know what the Snorunts have cooked. Overwhelmed with offensive pressure. I mean, Thundurus is good into Starmie and Mawile. Depending on its set, maybe good into stuff like Dusclops and Amoonguss too. Like, Taunt could go crazy here. They just need a way to get through Heatran, so I think that's what the Diglett's for, but let's see. Here we go. Diglett versus Trapinch. You definitely love to see that. Clefable leading with Glalie against... Oh yeah, Mega Glalie is here. And they didn't bring Mega Sceptile, so this is their only Mega here. Against Dusclops and... I was about to say Abomasnow, but I believe this is Amoonguss. We see Frisk on the Dusclops. We see that the Clefable is holding a Citrus Berry. And we know that Glalie has its Mega Stone. Glalie protects. As Clefable just goes for a Moonblast to ship the Dusclops. Takes a Sludge Bomb back for a bunch of damage. And Dusclops sets Trick Room. So this looks like a pretty strong position for the Elegancy. We also see Glalie is running Moody. It gets a special attack boost and loses accuracy. That's kind of funny. But also, no part of that helps it deal with Amoonguss and Trick Room, other than just being able to knock it out more quickly, but that doesn't stop a Spore. I guess you could redirect the Spore and then knock out the Amoonguss, as long as you hit your attack through the accuracy drop, but we'll see what they actually go for here. It is Follow Me from Clefable. It's Will-O-Wisp into Clefable, so Clefable, if they also went for Spore, Clefable will not even take a nap here thanks to that burn. But no, it's just Sludge Bomb. It knocks out Clefable with a crit that probably doesn't matter. I don't know, might not matter. Judging by the earlier damage, it's close. And Glalie does go for that +2 Ice Beam, but it lands the attack, but it misses the KO. Amoonguss, surviving on low HP and showing a Citrus Berry. Glalie's Moody gives it a speed boost, kind of the last thing you want in Trick Room, but if it can get through the Trick Room, that'll be nice. But it also It's a little bit harder for it to get through the Trick Room as it loses some special defense. But now we see Metagross come in. That could threaten maybe a Bullet Punch into a Amoonguss or something. First it has to dodge a Will-O-Wisp, I guess, but it does do that. But there's no Bullet Punch. Actually, Bullet Punch would have come up before Will-O-Wisp, but there's no Bullet Punch here. They go for Gastro Acid into Glalie to turn off the Moody. Okay, Amoonguss learns Gastro Acid. There's some new information. But Glalie protects and avoids that, and avoids an Earthquake from his partner, which KOs nothing. That was honestly pretty sad Earthquake damage. Moody now giving Glalie another speed boost at the cost of physical defense, so it is going to be an absolute glass cannon if it gets through this Trick Room. But still has to do that. It'll Mega Evolve here, so no more Moody, changing its ability to Refrigerate as Metagross protects and avoids a Will-O-Wisp. And Glalie is put to sleep with a Espurr. I mean, if they don't have good damage into Glalie, then maybe it gets through this Trick Room and it actually gets to take advantage of those stat boosts. Those are pretty valuable outside of Trick Room. Metagross switches out to Thundurus, so Metagross again avoids a Will-O-Wisp, but also Thundurus manages to dodge that, so that's lucky for them. Gastro Acid does go into Glalie this time. Again, the ability it's turning off is Refrigerate, not Moody. But that's still not great if the Glalie is relying on normal type attacks to turn into ice type attacks and do big damage for it, but we'll see. Well, we already saw Ice Beam actually, so it should be okay. It's still a +2 Ice Beam as Glalie wakes up here on the last turn Trick Room and it goes for Explosion. And it's normal type Explosion because Refrigerate was turned off by the Gastro Acid. That's hilarious. Gastro Acid actually... I mean, I don't know how much Explosion would do to Dusclops, even with the Refrigerate boost. But the partner Thundurus survives thanks to it being a normal type Explosion. It's hilarious that Gastro Acid mattered that much here. But I am surprised that the Glalie blew itself up when it had some actually useful stat boosts once Trick Room was over. Not sure what they were cooking with that, but it does get a KO, and Thundurus survives thanks to the opponent's Gastro Acid, which is still super funny. Now we get Metagross and Heatran. Heatran just protecting here. Dusclops, I'm guessing, going for another Trick Room. Thundurus not taunting it, so it will get the opportunity. Going for a Focus Blast into the Protect. Earthquake also into the Protect. Not going to do a lot to Dusclops. No Trick Room. Actually, it's just Rock Slide. It KOs the Thundurus with a crit. Don't know if that mattered. Doesn't do much to Metagross. But now Heatran is free to click Heat Wave and cook the Metagross. And I mean, it's hard to see how they beat Heatran, right? Well, they have to land a Focus Blast into it. They didn't get the chance to do that, but... So, like, the Glalie... Once Trick Room is over, the +4 special attack, +2 special attack, +4 speed Glalie looks like it might actually be pretty good. Obviously, it hard loses to Heatran unless it has a way through, so if it has, like, Hidden Power Ground, then maybe it just sweeps, but if it's relying on Ice Beam for damage, that's a lot harder. But maybe a +2 Ice Beam could take out the Dusclops and then before Thundurus goes down, and Thundurus could beat Heatran with that Focus Blast. I feel like that explosion... I feel like there might have been a way to do this if not for that explosion. There's also the freeze chance with the +2 Ice Beam. But okay, I read the Discord after the match. I do know that the Snorunts coach took the view that they didn't have a good way through Heatran. But I feel like there was some kind of out they could play toward if they didn't blow up their own Glalie. But I don't know, it was a nice spectacle. I loved seeing Gastro Acid matter to the way this game played out, so that was fun. Can't deny some showmanship there. Anyway, game 2. Azolf and Glalie Glalie's back, leading against Heatran and Dusclops. Hidden Power Ground anywhere. Azolf, Glalie. Azolf has the safety goggles, so that'll help into Amoonguss if that's still here. There's that defensive duo again, by the way. Teaming up in both pools. Glalie protecting here. Azolf goes for Taunt into Dusclops, denying a possible Trick Room. Takes a Heat Wave back, takes a lot of damage, gets burned, but does stop a Trick Room, but knocked to red HP by the burn damage. Glalie getting +2 special defense from the Moody. Maybe that'll come in handy somehow, although still pretty bad position against Heatran. If it doesn't have a good hidden power for this or something, and also loses some special attacks, so even hidden power, not so appealing now. Mega Evolves immediately. No more Moody boosts in this game. Azolf goes for Thunderbolt, which only does about a quarter to Heatran. Glalie just blows itself up again, taking Azolf with it. This time it does hit Dusclops thanks to Refrigerate, and it does pretty respectable damage. The Gastro Acid might have saved the Dusclops in that last game, but only KOing itself and its partner here, not any opponents. Maybe they're repositioning to get something in that threatens the Heatran. It's Thunderous, it's Metagross. I mean, they have the Earthquake and Focus Blast, right? Now Trapinch is here, why not? Alright, Duke de Fourgeray, which is Dusclops, I think. Yeah, switches out to Trapinch. Heatran will protect here, avoid any possible... Wait, it's Disquake? But the partner is not immune to the Discharge. This is going to hit Metagross. I was going to say Heatran avoids a possible Focus Blast or Earthquake, but... Yeah, once again, Snorunts only damaging their own Pokemon here, and they also paralyze the Metagross. And the Heatran avoids the Earthquake, and Metagross might not get a chance for another one now. It actually does move next, maybe going for Protect, I would think. I don't think it outspeeds Heatran anymore, but it's fully paralyzed. Trapinch protecting here. The Discharge will not quite knock anything out. It does get the Para on Heatran. Heat Wave back, though, knocks out Metagross, and then Trapinch going for Quick Attack. Why not? Honestly, reasonable option on Trapinch to hit a Thunderous outside of Trick Room. Goes for Quick Attack. Doesn't quite get the KO. I would love to see Trapinch get on the leaderboard, but perhaps not this time, unless Heatran's fully paralyzed or knocked out by this Discharge. Heatran's knocked out by the Discharge. Mawile comes in. They still have... Oh yeah, they still have 3 other Pokemon. That was the only KO. I focused so much on the Heatran. Right, that was the only KO. Mawile's here. Goes for Sucker Punch. Denies Trapinch the KO. I'll be honest, yeah. The Snorunts blowing up their own team was made it pretty clear who was going to win this, but I was rooting for Trapinch to get that KO. Maybe next time. And so we still have kind of a 3-way race at the top of Pool B. I mean, I haven't updated the standings table that I keep for these videos, but the Oguris beat Genie Incarnate. They're the only undefeated team left, but Genie Incarnate are right behind them, and I think the Elegancy took their only loss so far last week against, I think, Genie Incarnate as well. It was one of the other teams undefeated at the time, and they're still keeping pace as well, so the top of Pool B is still looking very strong, which, one, means it's going to be interesting when the pools cross over in the playoffs, and 2, means that the playoff race is probably still pretty wide open for, at least in those last couple spots, for anyone else in the pool. We are now at the halfway point in the regular season, and again, I haven't looked at the standings at the halfway point yet. I make that update right after I record, but I feel like this is still wide open for most, if not all, teams. There's still a lot that can happen the rest of the way. But we're just going to have to wait and see. Will there be more Skydrop nonsense? Will Quick Attack Trapinch get itself on the KO leaderboard next time? I'm going to check 2 things. Call this a bit of bonus. Wow, it is late. I need to go to bed. But I want to get my mechanics right. Skydrop does no damage to flying-type Pokemon, but it specifically says flying types. It doesn't say not grounded, so yeah, it does do damage. Well, we saw that it does damage to a Levitate Pokemon. It's just so unintuitive to me, but Bulbapedia agrees. And then Natural Gift. What a weird move Skydrop is. Is this still in the games? They dexited it, right? Yeah, it's been gone since Gen 8. No wonder. It had some weird bugs around it too. Silly move. Super interesting though. Fun to see it popping off on some teams. Too bad Staraptor can't learn it. And then Natural Gift. Physical, physical variable power. The type and power depend on the berry, so I got that right. And with a Ganlon berry, I think it's pretty far down the list. Here it is. Oh, it's Ice type. 80 power Ice type. So, what did I guess it was? Did I guess that it was Rock? Or did I guess that it was Ice and say maybe it could have been Rock as well? I mean, that would make the most sense into I don't know. Well, that's what it was. If we see that move again, maybe I'll check the table again. But 80 base power. Physical ice type. In 1 minute, it will be midnight on the dot, and I gotta get some sleep. Fun week. More to come.